Chapter 162. Wuming canceled the inherent enchantment. After leaving the sixth floor of Nazalik, everyone once again returned to the deserted wasteland. "Yo, you are the strange god slayer." Suddenly, a young man's voice came. Everyone looked at the source of the voice, and a young man stood there with a long tube on his back. This is Italy's King of Swords, Salvatore Anthony. Erica was afraid that Wuming did not know the king, so she deliberately stood behind Wuming and quietly told Wuming. Wuming turned his head and looked at Erica. "You are quite loyal," Wuming teased. After all, Erica had just joined Wuming, and she began to think about Wuming. "Of course, after all, I chose to be loyal to you," Erica said with a smile. "Then you will not be disappointed." Wuming raised an unruly smile again. "Minister Salvatore, you are here." Led by Paul, the people of Black Cross and Red Cross greeted Salvatore Anthony. "Well, I heard that a compatriot was born here, and it is a compatriot transformed from the god of disobedience. So I hurried over to take a look." Although he said that he came over to take a look, Salvatore's eyes were burning with fighting spirit. "So, the king of disobedience is you." Salvatore looked at Wuming again. "Yes, it's me. Why? Do you want to fight?" Wuming said directly as soon as he came up. Wuming saw that Salvatore seemed to be a rather casual person. To put it simply, Salvatore was a fool. Wait a minute, the king of disobedience, didn't you say?" A senior executive behind Paul said nervously. Wuming turned his head and glanced at the man. "Fong Exent, I won't fight here." With that said, the staff of Anzavolgan in his hand tapped the ground again. Ripples of energy spread out in all directions, instantly enveloping the few people present. The scene changed, and several people appeared in the arena that they had just come to. Oh, is this your authority? It's amazing," Salvatore said excitedly. Wuming placed the staff of Anziurgan into the golden ripples that appeared behind him, and said to Salvatore, "This is the place where I used to live. How is it? Not bad, right?" "It's more than that. It's so cool," Salvatore shouted. "It's not just here. There's a vast forest outside. If it's not enough, we can go outside," Wuming said as he pointed at the door at the edge of the arena. "No, this is enough." With that, Salvatore took out a sword from the long tube behind him. Wuming gestured for Erica to bring the others to the auditorium. For a moment, only Wuming and Salvatore were left in the huge arena. Wuming looked at Salvatore, who was holding the sword, and looked at it carefully. This was a knight's sword without any special characteristics, but Wuming could feel pressure from it. "So let's get started." As Wuming's words fell, Salvatore activated the power of the word spirit. "Swear the oath here. I won't allow anything that I can't cut to exist. And this sword is an invincible blade that can cut everything on the ground." In an instant, Salvatore's arm turned into a silver metal arm. At this time, even Wuming felt a great sense of crisis. "You must not be cut." This was Wuming's instinctive thought. "I'm strongest. I will capture all the victors. Humans and demons, all enemies. I will defeat all hostile people. That is why I shall destroy all enemies that stand in my way." Wuming also chanted the words of the authority activation. "It's time, Wuming." After speaking, Salvatore instantly rushed at Wuming and slashed with his sword. Wuming quickly moved his body and dodged the blow. Boom! The ground was instantly cut like tofu. "I am the strongest, and I hold all the victories in my hands. Be it human or demon, I'm the one who will defeat any enemy that stand in my way. I will destroy any enemy that stands in my way. Giant with supreme divine power, give me your help." The long pointer on the slate in Wuming's heart pointed to the 2 o'clock direction, and the slate depicting the giant that supported the sky glowed. As the giant spirit chanted, Wuming's body was covered with a golden phantom. As if he had tens of thousands of tons of divine power, Wuming suddenly punched at Salvatore. Boom! Salvatore dodged the punch and hit the ground of the arena. Gravel splashed, and the ground of the entire arena was instantly smashed into a spider web. "What outstanding power!" Paul exclaimed in the audience. "This is Sir Wuming's giant incarnation. It is the result of the combination of Wellislana's authority and Mecker's authority. Erica explained, knowing that there would be an official magic association to name the Godslayer's authority. Wuming had already told Erica the name of his authority. Wuming didn't want to get any strange names. Hey, if this hits me, it's not a joke. Despite saying so, Salvatore smiled. Your sword is not a joke either, Wuming replied. At this moment, Wuming had an excited smile on his face. Wuming now knew why the Godslayer was called the Demon King and the Problem Child. Although the Godslayer was still human, its essence had changed. It was like a beast. Even the most gentle Godslayer would fight. Once the battle started, the Godslayer would ignore the surroundings and act completely according to his heart. With such a time bomb, it was no wonder that the magicians were in awe of the Godslayer. Although Wuming's root dragon bloodline would not be affected, these authorities had been transformed by Wuming into the accompanying noble phantoms. Therefore, Wuming was also affected. Continue, Salvatore. The short needle on Wuming's inner stone plate pointed in the direction of 10 o'clock. Be afraid of those with wings. Evil people and powerful people are afraid of me with wings. My wings will bring you a curse. Evil people can't hit me. After chanting the words again, Wuming's figure disappeared in an instant. Wuming appeared above Salvatore in an instant and gave him a punch. What? Salvatore spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was pressed to the ground by Wuming. Wuming frowned slightly and moved his somewhat uncomfortable body. It seems that the power of the phoenix is not as simple as acceleration. After all, for Wuming, a simple acceleration could not make his strengthened body feel uncomfortable. Afterward, Wuming looked at Salvatore, who had spat out a lot of blood, and asked, So, do you want to continue, King of Swords? Chapter 163. The next day, Wuming started breakfast under Erica's greeting. Because of Wuming's special permission, and Erica was not a superficial person, the two naturally ate at the same table. Then, because of the strange atmosphere, Wuming couldn't help but ask, Erica, why are you looking at me all the time? Wuming looked at Erica's sapphire-like pupils. I can't help it. Although I also thought that you, Wuming, could defeat Salvatore, I didn't expect you to defeat him so easily and even knock him unconscious. Wuming couldn't help but remember how Wuming knocked down Salvatore with Giant and Phoenix yesterday. After Wuming asked, Do you want to continue? Wuming found that Salvatore had fainted. After all, Wuming could launch an attack from above. It could be said that he hit Salvatore's head directly. Even the Godslayer could not remain conscious after being hit in the head with tens of thousands of tons of force. Wuming lifted the inherent enchantment, and then a person who claimed to be Salvatore's attendant appeared. Erica told Wuming that this was Andre Rivera, Salvatore's confidant. He had the power of a grand knight and was the only existence who could rebuke Salvatore. In the information provided by Erica, Salvatore had the title of Deacon Wong in the industry. It could be said that without Andre, Salvatore could only be a warrior instead of the leader of the Southern European Magic Association Alliance. After Andre left the words, Sorry to bother you, King of Disobedience. You'll be fine in 2 days. Don't worry. Andre took Salvatore away. Shaking his head, Wuming looked at Erica, who was still looking at him. You seem to think that I defeated Salvatore very easily, but it's not that simple. Wuming put down the knife and fork and wiped the corners of his mouth. The reason why I can easily defeat Salvatore is that the other party doesn't know my authority, and the other is that I directly knocked him out. Well, actually, the latter part was the main point. But you did win the battle with Salvatore, Erica said with a smile. People often don't care about the process, but the result. What's more, the competition before the Godslayers. Please remember this, Lord Wuming. Erica was right. Wuming also knew that sometimes the result was often more important than the process, but it did not mean that he could be arrogant just because he won against Salvatore. The point is to take him by surprise. There is nothing to say. If Salvatore is prepared, then it will not be so easy to win next time. After that, Wuming stood up and walked towards the door. Wuming opened the door. I'm going out to study authority for a bit. I'll be back in the afternoon. With that, the sound of the door closing could be heard. Wuming took out the staff of Ains Ergong and entered the enchantment. Lord Wuming, As soon as Wu Ming entered, he saw Satya and Seabass kneeling on one knee to salute him. Uh-huh, Wu Ming replied. Now, Wu Ming had seen through it. These guardians were loyal to him. Only Demiugos and Yair Abed could be flexible and would no longer kneel to Wu Ming. Of course, that was only in informal situations. I need to test my newly acquired power. Prepare in the arena on the 6th floor. Yes, Lord Wu Ming. Because of the enchantment, only Satya and Seabass, who followed Wu Ming, were here, so some work could only be left to them. Soon, Wu Ming came to the arena. I am the strongest, the one who holds all victory in my hands. No matter if it's a human or a demon, I will defeat any enemy that stands in my way. Giant with unparalleled divine power, give me your aid. As the words were spoken, the long needle on the stone plate of authority pointed at 2 o'clock. Instantly, Wu Ming's surroundings changed. A large amount of golden energy continuously surged out of Wu Ming's body, forming a tall energy giant. The appearance of the energy giant could not be seen clearly, as if it had been pixelated. The giant's muscles were ligated, and only the lower half of its body was covered by a golden energy battle skirt. The rest of its body was naked. Wu Ming floated in the head of the energy giant and looked down. So that's how to use the giant incarnation. Then, Wu Ming continued to chant, all evildoers, be afraid of my power. Now, I will have the majesty of 10 mountains, the power of 100 rivers, and the strength of 1,000 dragons. The majestic me will raise the mark of a fierce dragon. The short needle on the stone plate pointed at 1 o'clock. Instantly, the golden energy giant that enveloped Wu Ming changed. A long dragon tail grew out from behind him, and golden energy dragon scales were densely arranged on the giant's naked skin. His hands and feet became fierce and sharp, and his face that couldn't be seen clearly instantly became real, like a dragon's head, with a pair of fierce dragon horns growing out of his head. At this moment, the golden energy giant had completely turned into a golden energy dragon man. Wu Ming tested a few other authorities, and the results were different from what he knew. As expected, so, the power of authority is not just that. Although these authorities have become my noble phantoms, I still can't completely control them. I still need to train. After all, this was a super high-level spell that Pandora and Epimetheus had set up that affected the whole world. If it was placed in the Shape Moon world, it could be said to be more powerful than magic. Wu Ming could not help but think of the night when he was called the God Slayer. After Wu Ming fell asleep, as if he was dreaming, Wu Ming came to a place that was completely white. Wu Ming took 2 steps and stopped. Master Wu Ming, someone used an unknown great spell to bring your spirit to this place. Kalas was a noble phantasm that was connected to Wu Ming's soul, so naturally, she could come with Wu Ming. If you want to play tricks, don't blame me for not holding back. Wu Ming said to the air around him, Wah, don't hit me. Suddenly, a seductive female voice was heard. Wu Ming turned his head and saw a cute lowly with a child's face and body. Her purple waist-length hair was tied into 2 ponytails with a white hairband behind her back. The accessories on her ears were slightly large purple ball-shaped pendants. Although she did not have a figure at all, she was still wearing a thin, white, low-cut dress. Even so, she was still very seductive. Wu Ming had never seen a woman with such charm. Wu Ming guessed that other than Ishtar, whom he met at Mount Abiff, no one else could be compared to her. Come, little Wu Ming, I'm your mother. The little lowly opened her arms and hugged Wu Ming. No, Wu Ming pushed her head away. Because of her figure, the little lowly's hands could not touch Wu Ming's body. Then, the little lowly looked at Wu Ming with a heartbroken expression. I'm so sad that you treat your mother like this. Sob, sob. Wu Ming was a little helpless. If you want to sob, you don't have to say it out loud. Then, little Wu Ming, can you call me mother? The little lowly looked at Wu Ming with an expectant expression. Wu Ming did not care about the topic and asked directly, Who are you? Chapter 164. At this time, the purple-haired little lowly also became serious. I'm Pandora, Pandora, Wu Ming said while rubbing his chin. Let's just say that Wuming's Nathalicres Pandora had nothing to do with this. Wuming naturally knew of Pandora, who asked Pandora to be so famous. In Greek mythology, in order to punish the humans who were given fire by Prometheus, the god specifically ordered Hephaestus, the god of fire, to use the goddess as the foundation of water and earth to create a beautiful woman. This woman's name was Pandora. Every god gave Pandora something, causing Pandora to become a perfect woman. The gods married her to Epimetheus, the younger brother of Prometheus. Then, the gods gave Pandora a box. Driven by curiosity, Pandora opened Pandora's box, which released disasters, plagues, and scourges. Although Pandora closed the box in time, the disasters, plagues, and scourges had already escaped. Only the hope given by Athena remained. Then, what were your thoughts when you created the God-Slayer, Pandora? Wuming looked at Pandora fiercely and directly began to question Pandora. Pandora was stunned for a moment. Then her eyes turned red, tears flowed down, and she began to cry. Wah! Looking at Pandora, who began to cry, Wuming was a little panicked. Wuming wanted to directly question Pandora, but Wuming did not expect Pandora to cry like this. Wuming, who had never made a girl cry, was at a loss. Then, Wuming could only copy the way he comforted Mayu, hugging Pandora in his arms and stroking her head. Sorry, I was too serious. I apologize, please forgive me. Wuming looked at Pandora rather sincerely. Pandora also looked at Wuming with tears in her eyes. Then, Pandora somewhat choked and asked, Really, yes, I'm sorry. It's my fault. Please forgive me. Wuming hurriedly apologized again. Then, Pandora wiped her tears and looked at Wuming with red and swollen eyes. Then, can you call me Mom? Wuming now felt speechless. In the end, Wuming compromised. Sister Pandora. Although Pandora was still a little dissatisfied, Wuming still said firmly, Just call me sister. If you can't, then forget it. All right then, Pandora said. Then, Pandora hugged Wuming happily and said, Little brother is brother. It's my first time. Listening to this incomparably cheerful voice, Wuming was a little speechless. He wondered if Pandora's crying just now was an act. Okay, Pandora, it's time to answer my question. Wuming patted Pandora's back and said, Yes, what question? Pandora let go of Wuming with a happy face. What exactly is a God-Slayer? Why can I, a person who is not from this world, obtain authority? What is the use of authority? The God-Slayer is the product of a worldwide curse that Epimetheus and I created together. It is a guardian to help humans through difficult times. Pandora replied, And the reason you can obtain omnipotence is because I want you to become a God-Slayer. It's that simple. As for authority, this needs to be judged and used by yourself. Besides, the God-Slayer is an existence that can automatically increase power, so authority is slowly grasped. Pandora's face was full of joy as she spoke while swaying left and right. After becoming a God-Slayer, not only will you be immune to attacks below the God level, but you will also have the benefit of automatically increasing your strength. As long as you fight, your strength will rapidly increase. Then, Pandora touched Wuming's cheek and said, As long as you fight, you will definitely become stronger. Even an ordinary person without any fighting strength will have the will to fight the moment they become a God-Slayer. You have to cherish this authority well. In order to instill the power of the God-Slayer into you, I spent a lot of effort. Then, Wuming's consciousness was sent back to his body. Until now, Wuming removed the authority, and the light of the stone plate dimmed. One irresponsible sister, I haven't finished asking. Then, Wuming looked at Sebastian and Zaisha standing beside him and said, You have adapted to the authority. I'm more or less adapted to my authority. Sebastian, Zaisha, come with me. Yes, Lord Wuming. Yes, Lord Wuming. In the outside world, Wuming suddenly appeared somewhere with Sebastian and Zaisha. Zaisha, Wuming suddenly said. Yes, Lord Wuming. Zaisha walked to Wuming's side with a charming expression. I have a mission for you, Wuming said to Zaisha. Then, Wuming had Zaisha lean over and Wuming read the mission to her. Yes, Lord Wuming. This subordinate will not let you down. Because Wuming's breath touched Zaisha's ear when he spoke, her face was flushed, and she spoke with a trembling voice like a young girl in love. Wuming smiled helplessly. I thought that after the sublimation of her origin, Zaisha wouldn't be so. Her personality wouldn't change. Remember, don't kill anyone if you can. Although your weakness has been uprooted, it's still best not to cause trouble. Yes, I understand, Lord Wuming. Zaisha bowed, then turned into a black shadow and left. Sebastian. Wuming looked at Sebastian. Here. Sebastian placed his right hand on his heart and bowed to Wuming. Stay by my side and be my butler. Yes, Lord Wuming. Although Zaisha and Sebastian had undergone the baptism of their origin, they did not seem to have changed at all. Zaisha was still wearing her purplish-black princess dress with a cake-like hem. Sebastian was still wearing his black butler suit. It could be said that neither of them had changed in terms of appearance or temperament. However, Wuming knew very well that the two of them could no longer be compared to their previous selves. It could be said that Zaisha and Sebastian were the strongest people in Nasalic apart from Wuming. Even the uncontrollable hidden trump card of Nasalic, libido, might not be able to defeat Zaisha and Sebastian. That's all for now. I'll bring you to meet my new subordinate. Then, Wuming brought Sebastian to the villa provided by Erica. As soon as he pushed open the door, Wuming heard an extremely pleasant voice. Chapter 165. Wuming pushed the door open and entered. What he saw was Erica entertaining an exceptionally beautiful girl. The girl looked about 20 years old. She had long golden wavy hair, shining with brilliance. She looked very beautiful, and her skin was white and delicate. Her clothes were matched with a white coat, a short knitted dress and pants under the coat, and black boots. You must be the seventh god slayer, Sir Wuming. I am Alice Louise of Nafar. Nice to meet you, Sir Wuming. Alice spoke in a calm tone, coupled with Alice's perfume-like noble temperament. Wuming couldn't help but take a second look. Ahem, Sir Wuming. It's almost time for you to answer Princess Alice's question, Erica said with some displeasure. After all, such a great beauty is in front of you every day, but you choose to look at someone else, although that person is indeed beautiful. I see. It's nice to meet you, Your Royal Highness Princess Alice. Wuming said with an elegant aristocrat's salute. In the information provided by Erica, there was this Princess Alice. Duke Godding's daughter, known as Princess Alice to the outside world, became the Speaker of the Sage Council of Greenwich at the age of 16. Now, she stepped down from the position of the Speaker of the Sage Council of Greenwich and was the current special advisor. Because of her extremely high magic talent, she was also known as the White Witch G. Speaking of this White Witch G, she was amazing. She was a genius girl who could fight the God Slayer with wisdom and courage. The British God Slayer, Alexander Gascoigne, was known as the son of the Black Prince Yerek. The Black Prince was once driven out of the United Kingdom by the White Witch G, Princess Alice, and Erica's uncle, Paul Brantley. Because his authority was inclined to support and character, the Black Prince did not entangle too much with Alice and Paul, but chose to retreat. Not only did this bring benefits to Alice, but it also gave Paul, a Grand Knight, an unsurpassable reputation. The story of the Witch G and the Grand Knight working together to fight against the God Slayer and successfully driving him away was widely known by magicians. It was also because of this that Alice was called the Princess and Paul became the commander of the Black Cross. As a God Slayer himself, Wuming naturally knew how terrifying a God Slayer was. Even if the Black Prince Yerek, the God Slayer, didn't have a strong combat ability, he shouldn't be underestimated. Moreover, it was mainly Alice's wisdom that played a role. Paul was only a supporting force. To be able to use her wits and the power of a Grand Knight to chase away a God Slayer was already a testament to Alice's shocking intelligence. Coupled with her heaven-shaking beauty, Wuming couldn't help but look at her in a new light. So what is Princess Alice doing here? Wuming began to ask Alice, going straight to the point. At this point, Alice felt a little awkward. Actually, I'm here to stop your duel with the Sword King. Alice received news that the seventh king had been born in Italy. Soon after, Alice received news that the Sword King was on his way to Italy. Moreover, the seventh king still stayed in Italy and did not leave. Alice, who had super high wisdom, immediately figured out why the other party was in a hurry to Italy. With Alice's understanding of the stupid Sword King, he must have gone to spar with the new king. Moreover, when Alice was about to use Ghost Body to go to Italy, she was discovered by her housekeeper and nanny, Erickson. So, under Erickson's strong opposition and physical control, Alice was kept in the United Kingdom. Although it's a little late, I still want to thank you for not causing irreparable damage to the surroundings because of your duel with Salvatore, Alice said with a slight smile. The news that the King of Disobedience Wooming and the Sword King Salvatore Tony had a duel in the King of Disobedience's own barrier, and one spread like wildfire. The news was spread by the magicians of the Black Cross, and it seemed that the Sword King also intended to do so. In short, because of the indulgent behavior of the Sword King, magicians all over the world knew that the new king defeated the Sword King. This made Princess Alice, who had just arrived in Italy in Europe from the United Kingdom, very helpless. With the idea that she had already come out, in fact, she was tired of staying at home, and Alice also wanted to see the new king, so the scene of Erica entertaining Princess Alice appeared. Sitting on the sofa, Wooming couldn't help laughing and said, "So, our famous Princess Alice just got tired of staying at home and ran away from home?" "No, I didn't run away from home. It's just that Erickson is too strict and keeps me in the house," Alice said with a little blush. In this regard, Wooming just smiled. "Well, since you are out, please enjoy the outside world. I will let Erica follow you," Wooming said. Erica asked Wooming in confusion. "Then, may I ask who this old man is, Wooming?" In these days of living with Wooming, Erica had almost figured out Wooming. It could be said that if she wasn't very sure that Wooming was indeed a godslayer, Erica wouldn't believe that the new king had such a good temper. The new king didn't mind at all if she called him by his name. Hearing Erica ask about Sebastian, Wooming began to introduce him. "This is my butler, Sebastian Dean." Then there was a moment of silence. "And?" Erica asked helplessly. That wasn't what she wanted to know. Alice also had a curious look on her face. "If I have to say, Sebastian is my power," Wooming said. Wooming waved at Sebastian, motioning for him to say a few words. "Greetings, ladies. I am Lord Wooming's butler, Sebastian. Please advise me." Sebastian put his right hand on his heart, and his left hand was close to his trousers and bowed slightly with a serious face. "Speaking of which, I remember that one also has this kind of tamed monster power," Alice suddenly said. "You must be referring to the Queen of the Faceless, the daughter of the Black Prince Yarek," Erica said. Wooming also remembered the power recorded in Black Prince Yarek's information. The ability to summon Melusin, the legendary two-tailed mermaid and half-human half-snake goddess, as a tamed monster. The summoned Melusin had her own consciousness because of the goddess herself, so she had high wisdom. That was undoubtedly what Sebastian wanted. Chapter 166. Thinking of this, Wooming shook his head and said, "Even so, Sebastian is not a familiar." After looking at Erica, Wooming looked at Alice and continued. "In terms of strength alone, Sebastian is almost comparable to any of the Godslayers." As soon as these words came out, Erica and Alice were a little surprised. The reason why the Godslayers were called Godslayers was that in addition to having the authority to kill the god of death, they also had a super high level of physical defense. The Godslayer had a magic immune body that was immune to divine attacks, and the body of the Godslayer also had super high endurance in terms of defense against physical damage. At the very least, they would not be injured under a series of conditions that were fatal to humans, such as being stabbed with a knife and jumping down from a high-rise building. As for large-caliber sniper rifles, it was hard to say. After all, no one dared to use a sniper rifle to experiment on the Godslayer, and the magicians disdained and dared not use sniper rifles on the Godslayer. In case the Godslayer did not die, then they would face a punishment more terrifying than the catastrophe and the god of disobedience. No country or organization would be able to bear such a burden. When the Far East Island invaded China in the mid-19th century, they contradicted the second god-slayer, the Wuxia king of China, Luo Hao. As a result, the Wuxia kings single-handedly attacked their home base, grabbed their official government leaders, and directly caused the failure of the invasion war. At that time, they used the top magic weapons at that time, and the power of the entire country could not stop a godslayer. Since then, no one had underestimated the godslayer. Even the kindest Madame Aisha, who did not want to fight, could not be underestimated. This was because the godslayer had the power to cause trouble. Once he caused trouble, it would be as troublesome as several godslayers combined. Alice and Paul could join forces to repel the godslayer, Black Prince Yarek. Firstly, the series of events that Black Prince Yarek had done were too excessive, causing the dissatisfaction of almost all the magicians in Europe. Secondly, Yarek claimed that he was different from other godslayers and was a person who fought with his brain. In addition, he lost to Alice in wisdom, which led to Black Prince Yarek's departure. It could be said that if Yarek really wanted to deal with Alice and the others, he would do it even if it was troublesome. It could only be said that Alice had already figured out the Black Prince's personality. She knew that if she could outsmart him, he would not continue to pester her for the sake of his dignity. If it had been any other godslayer, they would have charged at Alice with their own power, even if they had lost in terms of intelligence. Sir Wuming, you are exaggerating. Sebastian bowed to Wuming. Wuming had told Sebastian and Sebastian about this world when they were practicing their authority in the underground tomb of Nasric. So Sebastian knew about the god of disobedience and the god slayer in this world. Don't underestimate yourself, Sebastian. Wuming looked at the humble Sebastian and continued, you should know that you are now my subordinate god. Even if you can't defeat me, you might still be able to win against someone who can't restrain you. Wuming was right. After the baptism of Origin, Sebastian could now become a dragon. Not only that, but he was also a dragon close to Wuming, which contained a trace of the power of Origin. As long as it was not the kind of authority that could slay a dragon, basically no one could kill Sebastian, who had a strong body. Speaking of dragon attributes, Wuming's attributes had to be talked about. Without the dragon attribute added by the servant, Wuming's Origin dragon bloodline was no longer a dragon attribute. The Origin dragon was just an addition of the word dragon to its appearance and name. As a creature born from the world's origin, how could there be any power that could restrain it? Therefore, the Origin dragon itself was Wuming's greatest advantage, a strong body that surpassed everything else, adaptability from all time and space, and no creature or device that could restrain it. If one had to say, the black mud with the smell of Wuming's hometown that restrained Wuming was the weapon that restrained Wuming. You're right, Lord Wuming. I was stupid, Sebastian said. Wuming waved his hand and said, it's not your fault. After all, you just obtained this power. You can feel it after using it once. Forget it, Sebastian. Go and prepare dinner, Wuming said with a headache. Yes, Lord Wuming. Sebastian left. Then, Wuming looked at Alice and Erica with a look of disdain. This is really troublesome. Anyway, you can think of Sebastian's origin however you want. You can think of him as my subordinate god, or as my power. That's it, Wuming said with a little temper. Then, he leaned back on the sofa. Erica and Alice looked at each other, and then they both smiled. You're really like a child, Wuming, Erica teased. I didn't expect Lord Wuming to have such a cute side, Alice said. Because Alice and Erica were old friends, Erica had told Alice about Wuming's easygoing personality, which was why Alice was so presumptuous. Wuming looked at the two of them with dead fish eyes. Since he stopped using the body of a servant, Wuming's temperament had changed back to that of a teenager. Even though he had been active in Connaught, Britain, and Uruk for nearly 50 years, Wuming still had the mentality of a teenager. Actually, if one really had to say, Wuming could be considered a problem child. His time as a servant was only slightly affected by his rank and origin at that time. By the way, Alice, you should have other purposes for coming to me, right? Wuming ignored the two's teasing and suddenly changed the topic. Alice and Erica also stopped teasing. Then, Alice said to Wuming, Wuming, Sama, do you know about Gorgonstone? Gorgonstone? Wuming muttered. Then Wu-ming asked, "Is it the Gorgon in Greek mythology?" "Yes," Alice said, then looked at Erica, motioning Erica to answer for her. Erica nodded and said, "This is the case. Wu-ming, Alice once made a prophecy about Gorgon stone, and the result was not good. When there is no moon and stars, darkness will cover the earth. At that time, human beings will not be able to survive," Erica said. Alice is a witch with the ability of spirit vision. Her prophecies have never failed. Wu-ming sneered at that. "So, how about I break the prophecy this time?" Chapter 167. Judging from the prophecy, this seems to be the power of the god of disobedience. There are only a few gods who are related to Gorgon stone. Wu-ming held his chin with both hands as he looked at Alice and Erica. The main ones are the three Gorgon sisters, Medusa, Stheno, and Euryale. However, I don't think the three Gorgon sisters who've been belittled as monsters would have the desire to destroy the world. Subsequently, Wu-ming said casually, "Anyway, give me the Gorgon stone now. I'll settle this." Alice and Erica looked at each other for a moment, then nodded. At night, Wu-ming was alone in his study room. His desk was filled with books, and the books on the bookshelf were different from before. Erica had replaced all the books here. They were all books about myths and legends. Meanwhile, the books on Wu-ming's desk were all about Gorgon. Wu-ming picked up the Gorgon stone in his hand and studied it carefully for a while. The Gorgon stone was an obsidian metal with a portrait of a Gorgon engraved on it. Wu-ming could not help but exclaim as he looked at the Gorgon stone that looked like Medusa's head, "This doesn't seem like an ordinary god relic." Wu-ming had seen a god relic once before he became a god slayer. It was the young man he had met when he first arrived in this world, the Grassy Guardian. The slate in his hand was a spell book, which was a god relic. Wu-ming would not misjudge his senses after becoming a god slayer. Because of that, Wu-ming could clearly sense that the power contained in the Gorgon stone was not as simple as it seemed. Just like the godhead of a god, Wu-ming said calmly. Wu-ming, who had the golden sword, could feel that the power of the Gorgon stone gave him the same feeling as when Wu-ming used the golden sword to cut through Wellislana's godhood. I wonder if the golden sword has any effect on the materialized divinity. Wu-ming stroked his chin and shook his head. I don't dare to do anything. Let's first record the knowledge about Gorgon. Then, Wu-ming picked up a book on the desk and opened it, saying, "Please, Collis." "Yes, master." The dragon horn on Wu-ming's head flashed, and like a scanner, a golden light shone on the book in Wu-ming's hand. Almost a few seconds later, Collis put away the scanning ray. "Master, do you want me to transfer the knowledge to you now?" Collis asked. "Just transfer it directly. After all, time is running out," Wu-ming said, and then closed his eyes. After a few seconds, Wu-ming opened his eyes. "No matter how I look at it, I feel that it's great to have you here, Collis." Wu-ming smiled. "That's just because you're lazy, master," Collis said with a helpless tone. After all, Wu-ming had a photographic memory now. However, with Collis here, why would Wu-ming waste time and effort to slowly read these myths by himself? Well, doesn't this show how important you are, my dear Collis? Hurry up and continue to the next book. Try to enter all the knowledge about Gorgon before you go to bed. Yes, yes. However, no matter how he listened to it, Wu-ming felt that Collis's voice had a hint of shyness. Wu-ming and Collis kept repeating the cycle of scanning, transferring knowledge, and receiving knowledge. The next day, Wu-ming, who was sitting at the dining table, yawned. Erica couldn't help but say, "You didn't really read myths the whole night yesterday, did you?" Erica couldn't help but think of what Wu-ming had said after his conversation with Alice and Erica the day before. "Erica, please send the books about myths to my study. Gorgon first, please." Then, Erica complained and contacted the staff of the Black Cross. They removed the historical records and information about European magic in Wu-ming's study overnight and replaced them with books about myths. Of course, because there were more books, Erica put many books in other rooms, waiting for Wu-ming to finish reading the books in the study before replacing them. Although Erica complained when she contacted the Black Cross, the staff of the Black Cross, including its commander, Paul, said with a smile, "Compared to the other god slayers, Lord Wu-ming is really easy to serve." That's right. as long as he didn't cause trouble everywhere, not to mention all the books about myths. Even if Wu Ming wanted to be the commander of the Black Cross, Paul would agree unconditionally. When Wu Ming learned these words from Erica, Wu Ming's expression was quite strange. Wu Ming couldn't help but think, are the Godslayers such a headache for magician? Although it was hard to believe, the Godslayers were such a headache for others. No matter how honest Wu Ming was, no matter how much he didn't stir up trouble, no one would be able to put their hearts at ease. After all, among the 7 Godslayers, Madame Aisha, who was known as the one who didn't want to fight the most, also had the power of a natural disaster. If she was accidentally implicated, she would be even more terrifying than the oldest Godslayer, Marquis Wabin. While eating, Wu Ming said to Erica, "It's no big deal. I have callus. I just stayed up for short while yesterday." Wu Ming had long told Erica about callus, so Wu Ming was not afraid that Erica didn't understand. But Alice, a young man who had just come into contact with Wu Ming, was quite interested in this callus that Wu Ming mentioned. At this moment, the golden dragon horns on Wu Ming's head appeared, and he said, "Actually, to put it bluntly, Master is just lazy in bed." "That's where you're wrong." Wu Ming continued after eating a mouthful of rice. "Now I realize that the bed is the greatest invention of mankind. Callus won't believe an excuse," Callus retorted. Alice watched the conversation between the master and servant with interest. She then asked Wu Ming, "Master Wu Ming, do you think? Master Wu Ming, does Ms. Callus belong to you as well?" Wu Ming answered after taking a sip of milk, "You can put it that way. You can think of Callus as a super high-level god relic that has its own consciousness." In reality, Wu Ming was right. Wasn't Callus, who was connected to Wu Ming's soul and had become his relic, Wu Ming's authority? Since he was known as the god of disobedience, wasn't his tool a god relic? "Master Wu Ming, you're such an interesting person." Alice smiled. It cannot be helped. It was impossible for Wu Ming not to be special. After all, he was a godslayer known as the god of disobedience. Chapter 168. Wu Ming separated from Erica and Alice after breakfast. Wu Ming asked Erica to take Alice around Italy, and Wu Ming specifically told Erica not to come to him. However, in order to make a fair deal, Erica asked Wu Ming, "Please don't involve the people." Wu Ming smiled helplessly. "Don't worry, I'm not one of those battle maniacs. When I fight, I forget about the surroundings. Besides, I have an inherent barrier, and I will put the battlefield inside the inherent barrier." Wu Ming still clearly remembered Erica's suspicious eyes. After that, Wu Ming came to a small island in the Mediterranean Sea. Crash! Listening to the sound of the wind blowing the waves, Wu Ming couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Then, Wu Ming took out Gorgonstone. Although I can seal Gorgonstone with a sealing technique, it's better to solve it in one go. After that, Wu Ming stretched out his hand and chanted the spell. Create great item, advanced item creation. With the condensation of magical particles, a lightning-shaped blue dagger appeared in Wu Ming's hand. That was Caster Media's noble artifact, Rulebreaker. Wu Ming gently touched Gorgon's stone with Rulebreaker. In an instant, the Banshee's eyes on Gorgon's stone glowed scarlet, and a powerful magical power burst out. "That's all right." Looking at Gorgon's stone, which had completely broken the seal, Rosin said. When Wu Ming got Gorgon's stone, there was a noble artifact seal set by Black Cross on it. Although the seal was broken, it still had some effect. At this moment, in order to avoid trouble, Wu Ming directly broke the seal. Wu Ming stretched out his hand again and took out Staff of Anziurgen from the golden ripple on his side. He put Staff of Anziurgen beside him, and Staff of Anziurgen automatically floated in the air, rotating slowly. "Next, we just have to wait," Wu Ming said, sitting cross-legged on the ground and closing his eyes. When it was almost night, Wu Ming felt that Gorgon's stone began to heat up, which was proof that its owner was about to arrive. Wu Ming opened his eyes and said, "Is it coming?" Wu Ming said as he watched the darkness engulf the island like a black cloud. "Is this the starless night?" Wu Ming broke the seal on Gorgon's stone in the morning. Although he didn't know why the other party chose to do it at night instead of during the day, Wu Ming could roughly guess. It should be a god related to darkness. Because Wuming was on a small island, there was no landing point other than where Wuming was, so Athena floated in the air. "So if it's you, the strange person who has my snake," Athena said. Wuming looked at Athena and couldn't help but smile. She had the body of a primary school student, short silver hair, black snake-like vertical pupils, a white long-sleeved shirt, and a yellow sleeveless sweater, a black short skirt, blue knee-length stockings, brown leather shoes, and a blue braided hat that looked like a beast's ear. No matter how Wuming looked at her, she looked like a cute primary school student. Of course, that was if she didn't have a huge amount of mana. "My name is Athena. You are both my compatriot and my natural enemy. Tell me your name." Athena's vertical pupils stared coldly at Wuming. "Just call me Wuming, Athena," Wuming said with a smile. At the same time, he released his mana. "You're an interesting fellow. Even though I would like to know why you, who share the same origin as me, would become my enemy, I'll retreat for now, since it's you," Athena said as she sensed something amiss the moment Wuming unleashed his magical powers. Then, the darkness around the island began to retreat, and Athena also left in another direction. "I will leave my snake with you for the time being, someone who shares the same origin." This made Wuming a little confused. "It can't be because of my identity as the god of disobedience in this world," Wuming said after thinking for a moment. Although Wuming was still Wuming, Wuming was branded as the god of disobedience when he came to this world. Of course, this brand did not bind Wuming. It just gave him another identity. Wuming did not care at first, but now it seemed that this identity of the god of disobedience was a little special. Even Athena knew about him. When Wuming released his mana, Wuming saw the expression on Athena's face. It was obviously a look of surprise when she saw someone familiar or when she knew about Wuming's existence. "Seriously, giving me such a headache every day. Gaia and Alea are like this. Even this world without any restraints is like this," Wuming complained helplessly. Wuming could not help but remember that Gaia and Alea created a historical story for Wuming in order to make him a servant of the human faction. That history was not fake, but the restraints threw Wuming into a historical story. To put it bluntly, it was just giving Wuming another identity. Just like Wuming in this world, a stone thrown into the lake would definitely cause the lake to change. Wuming even suspected that this was a collusion between the worlds. Shaking his head, Wuming did not think about it anymore. He put away the inherent barrier in the staff of Anzi-Wergong that he had set up in the outside world. Wuming instinctively opened a portal and walked in. In the villa, Erica and Alice sat on the sofa, drinking their respective drinks and chatting intermittently. "It's already nighttime, and there's still no news of Lord Wuming," Alice said worriedly. "Wuming should have moved the battlefield to his own barrier, and maybe he didn't come," Erica said. "By the way, Erica, do you think Lord Wuming can win?" Alice asked. Erica did not care about this and said confidently, "Winning is not a problem." Alice was a little puzzled. Why is Erica so sure? Erica took a sip of coffee and said, "That's because he's the king I have to serve. As a subordinate, how can I not believe in my master?" Alice was a little unhappy. What a cunning answer. Then she said, "By the way, Lord Wuming is really miraculous. A disobedient god actually became a god slayer. This is something that has never happened since ancient times." At this moment, Alice was suddenly stunned. Light flowed in her eyes as if she was playing something. "Alice?" Erica noticed that something was wrong with Alice. She quickly put down the coffee in her hand, stood up, and walked toward Alice. Could it be? Spirit vision has been triggered. Erica was indeed a genius of the Red Cross and Black Cross. She immediately noticed Alice's current state. At this moment, a black-purple portal opened, and Wuming walked out of it. Chapter 169. Wuming walked out of the portal and saw Erica standing next to Alice, who was in a daze. "What's wrong with Alice?" Wuming asked Erica. Erica shook her head and said, "She's fine." Alice merely triggered her spirit vision. Spirit vision had two modes, active and passive. The prophecy of the starless moon in Gorgonstone was precisely what Alice had predicted by activating her spirit vision. Clearly, Her spirit vision was passive this time. Wuming walked to Erica's side. Looking at the dazed Alice, he mumbled, "Is there a new prophecy?" It was also at this moment that Alice's eyes regained their luster. This meant that her spirit vision had ended. "How is it, Alice? Did something new happen?" Erica asked as she bent down in front of Alice as soon as it was over. Alice glanced at Erica, then looked at Wuming. "Lord Wuming." Alice looked at Wuming in a daze. Seeing that something was wrong with Alice, Wuming hurriedly shouted, "Alice! Alice!" As if Wuming had been awakened, Alice's body swayed violently. As if Wuming had short-circuited, Alice's body became unstable as if she was about to disappear. Just as she was about to fall, Wuming instantly appeared beside Alice and hugged her. "Lord Wuming, I'm sorry. It seems that I won't be able to tell you a new prophecy here," Alice said as she lay weakly in Wuming's arms. "Is it the side effect of spirit vision that's causing your spirit body to become unstable?" Wuming asked. "Don't worry." After saying that, Wuming closed his eyes. On the stone plate in his heart, the long needle instantly moved to the 12 o'clock position. It was a mage wearing a long robe whose face couldn't be seen clearly. The stone plate lit up. Then, Wuming seemed to have obtained a supreme divine power. His body flashed with a golden light, and his eyes emitted a golden light. Like a big golden light bulb, Erica and Alice in Wuming's arms couldn't help but squint their eyes. "Is this Lord Wuming's power?" Alice, who was in Wuming's arms, asked weakly. "Yes, this is the mage's incarnation, which evolved from Wuming's youth's incarnation. The young man's incarnation had a powerful power of speech. It could bless human beings, gain power from human beings, and it also had a very important thing, blessing. Naturally, the magician that evolved from the youth also had the ability to grant protection to others. It's coming, Alice." After saying that, Wuming's face slowly moved towards Alice. Wait, no. Wuming-sama, Alice, who had never experienced such a thing, closed her eyes with a red face. Then, just when Alice thought that Wuming was going to kiss her, there was nothing wrong with her lips, only her forehead. Alice opened her eyes and saw Wuming's forehead tightly pressed against hers. Wuming's big golden eyes looked at Alice with a hint of smile. Alice was a little embarrassed, and her face instantly became more rosy. "Focus, close your eyes, I'm going to give you a blessing." Wuming reminded her. Yes, Alice said with a red face. Then, Alice closed her eyes and began to receive Wuming's blessing. A steady stream of huge magical power was transmitted to Alice's body through her forehead. In an instant, the magical power was transformed into vitality, replenishing Alice's weak body. Alice felt as if she was soaking in a hot spring. Her surroundings were filled with warmth, and gradually, Alice had the idea of falling asleep. After Wuming felt that it was enough, his forehead left Alice's forehead and removed the mage's incarnation. Looking at Alice, who had a happy smile on her face and closed her eyes, Wuming patted Alice's cheek and said, "Wake up, don't fall asleep." Alice suddenly opened her eyes, looked at Wuming with some embarrassment, and said, "Sorry, Lord Wuming. The feeling just now was too comfortable, and I accidentally indulged in it." Wuming was a little curious, and then said, "Was it that comfortable?" After all, this was the first time Wuming used the power of blessing on others, and he was not very familiar with it. Maybe my divine aura was mixed in. Wuming thought so. Then, Wuming continued, "Because your body is not your real body now, I did not give you too much blessing. This blessing can last for about 7 days, and it can be said that there is no problem at all to maintain your ghost body." "Thank you very much, Lord Wuming." Alice smiled sweetly and looked at Wuming. Wuming shook his head, indicating that there was no need to be so polite, and then continued, "In a few days, I will go to England. At that time, I will personally add a longer blessing to your body. I believe that if this is the case, you should be able to use your own body to walk around, and you don't need the ghost body." Wuming's words made Alice fall into deep thought. Being able to walk freely in various areas was something that Alice had never thought of. After all, Alice's body was weak because of the negative effects of her powerful talent. This was not a disease, and it was basically untreatable. Just as Wooming looked at the pondering Alice, the person next to him was a little unhappy about being ignored. "I say, it's about time for you to let go," Erica said with a fake smile, but everyone could hear the anger in Alice's voice. At this moment, Wooming and Alice realized that the two were still hugging each other. "Ah!" Alice screamed, and quickly broke free from Wooming's two big hands. Wooming took the initiative to let go of Alice, and smiled awkwardly. "Ahem, although your Highness Alice's body is fine, your spirit hasn't fully recovered. Your Highness Alice, would you like to take a rest?" Erica said after coughing. Spirit vision consumed not only magic power, but also the caster's spirit power. This was also the reason why many witches fainted after divination. It was because the things they prophesied were too huge. The huge here didn't refer to the body, but to the status. Wooming also nodded in agreement, then looked at Alice. Alice shook her head and said, "I'm fine. I think it's better to tell Lord Wooming the new prophecy as soon as possible. And after Lord Wooming added a blessing to me, I feel unusually excited. I don't feel the fatigue from using spirit vision at all." With that, Alice jumped up and down like a little girl to show that she was completely fine. Seeing that Alice had said so, Wooming and Erica didn't insist. Chapter 170. Alice, Wooming, and Erica sat on the sofa together. Then, Yaliana served drinks for the three of them. Wooming and Erica both looked at Alice quietly, waiting for her to say the prophecy. The starless night was broken by the legendary dragon. The earth withered, the sea dried up, and the world fell into a dead silence. The divine saber and the holy sword collided, and the hero and the demon king confronted each other, Alice said. "I saw a brave man with a divine sword and a demon king with a holy sword in Japan. Every blow had supreme power. The sky was torn apart, the earth was torn apart, and the sea was burned to dry up." As if she had remembered the scene she saw in the prophecy, Alice's body trembled a little as she said. Wooming grabbed Alice's hand. As if she had found a life-saving straw, Alice calmed down. "Don't think about that for now, Alice. You saw a scene that was too long in the timeline or too high level. It's not something you can bear right now," Wooming comforted her. Then, Wooming, Alice, and Erica began to think about the meaning of this paragraph. Let's see how the legendary dragon broke the starless night. The starless night should refer to Athena. Then, does this legendary dragon refer to Wooming? Erica said. Wooming shook his head and said, "Not necessarily. Athena came today, but she might not have the confidence to attack me. After I said something to Athena, she left on her own." At this moment, Erica said excitedly, "Wait, you didn't kill Athena?" At first, when Wooming returned, Erica didn't ask him if he had killed Athena because of Alice. However, Erica still had confidence in Wooming, so she didn't ask again. Looking at the agitated Erica, Wooming smiled. "Isn't that normal? I'm not in urgent need of authority to increase my strength, and Athena shows no signs of declaring war on me. Isn't this a good result?" Wooming found that the power of Welslana and Mekkel was enough for the time being. It should be said that even if it was only Welslana's power, after being sublimated into Wooming's noble phantasm, Wooming could be regarded as an existence that could do whatever he wanted. As such, there was no need to overly pursue power. Wooming was an origin dragon. As long as he was accelerated by external forces or waited until he reached adulthood, Wooming's power would naturally undergo a qualitative change. Pursuing power was nothing more than an act of Wooming to protect himself during his childhood. There was no need to overdo it. Erica sighed and said unhappily, "Forget it. You're the king. You call the shots." Looking at the unhappy Erica, Wooming comforted her. "Don't worry. Athena is now lacking a divine spark. Even if she stays on the ground, it won't affect time." Alice covered her mouth and laughed. Lord Wooming is really magnanimous. This is called confidence. Wooming shrugged. Ahem. So, if the legendary dragon isn't Wooming, then who is it? Everyone pondered. The legendary dragon should be referring to myself. Breaking the starless night shouldn't be referring to what happened today. After all, Athena retreated of her own accord and didn't fight. At present, the Gorgon stone is still in my hands. The legendary dragon breaking the starless night is likely to happen in the future. Wu Ming thought, let's not talk about this for now. Have you noticed that the demon king with the holy sword is likely to be the god slayer? Because his speculation was almost done, Wu Ming began to change the topic. According to the saying, the confrontation between the hero and the demon king. If the demon king refers to the god slayer, then the hero with the divine sword refers to the god of disobedience, Erica said. And the series of disasters mentioned later are likely to be caused by the descent of the god of disobedience, but it can't be ruled out that it was caused by the god slayer, Alice added. The problem now is the identity of the hero with the divine sword and the demon king with the holy sword. It's easy to find a god slayer with a holy sword. After all, there are only 7 god slayers. But it's hard to say about the god of disobedience with the divine sword. In the myths, there are many gods who use the divine sword as their weapon, Alice said with a headache. Everyone pondered. After a moment, Wu Ming spoke. Let's not think about this for now. We can't figure it out now. At worst, we'll just deal with it when it comes. Wu Ming, Lord Wu Ming, Erica and Alice grumbled. That's enough. Even if the sky falls, there are tall people to hold it up. If you keep thinking so hard, you'll grow old. As he spoke, Wu Ming stood up. In a few days, Erica and I will send you back to England. You can think about these things then. After that, Wu Ming left the living room. After Wu Ming left, Erica sighed. He really isn't worried at all. Erica didn't know whether to be happy or distressed. Should she be happy that her king was confident or distressed that she was too ambitious? Alice smiled faintly and said, Isn't this good? As a king, you have to have confidence. This is also the charm of a king. That's because your Highness Alice has a good mentality. You're the Princess Alice who fought a battle of wits with Black Prince Yarek and even drove him out of England in the end. That's all thanks to the help of Miss Erica's uncle, Lord Paul, said Alice. You're too serious, Your Highness Alice. You'd better go and get some rest. After all, mental exhaustion can't be eliminated. Erica stood up and was about to send Alice back to her room. I know, Miss Erica. I'll go by myself. By the way, Lord Wu Ming is really outstanding. You must seize the opportunity. After teasing Erica, Alice walked up the stairs and toward her room. Erica blushed, but didn't say anything. Seize the opportunity? On the other side, Wu Ming sat at his desk and picked up the book that recorded the myths again. It seems that I have to finish recording the myths as soon as possible, or the sword of spiritual speech will become useless, said Wu Ming. After learning that the god of disobedience who caused the starless night was Athena, Wu Ming had thought that he had to record the myths in his spare time. In this world where the god of disobedience often appeared, he couldn't do anything without a store of knowledge. Compared to other authorities, although the sword of spiritual speech hadn't been upgraded or enhanced, it was still Wu Ming's trump card. After all, this sort of spiritual speech was too unfair. As long as one knew the stories of the gods, they could seal the gods' abilities. The warrior authority, which had been upgraded to a noble artifact, could naturally be used on heroic spirit followers. It was a great weapon. How could he not cherish it? Chapter 171. After spending a few days with Wu Ming, he had almost recorded all the mythical stories provided by Erica's organization, the Black Cross. Of course, it was all thanks to Collis that he was able to complete it so quickly. Wu Ming lamented more than once about how right he had been to ask Zelik for the most advanced magic suit. This morning, Wu Ming, Erica, and Alice arrived at the Italian airport. Due to the fact that something so important had happened, Alice had to return to England. Wu Ming, on the other hand, had nothing else to do now. He was preparing to go to England with Alice and give her real body protection. Erica, on the other hand, was going to follow Wu Ming to England. What a joke. Even though Wu Ming was indeed much more harmless than the other godslayers, Erica was still worried about leaving Wu Ming alone somewhere else, so she naturally had to follow him. In fact, The reason why the Black Cross and Copper allowed Erica to become Wu Ming's follower and Wu Ming's knight was to monitor Wu Ming for fear that he would do something big. Even so, Wu Ming could still sense that Erica wasn't just monitoring him, but really wanted to become his knight. That was why Wu Ming kept her. As for why he didn't directly use teleportation magic, Wu Ming expressed his helplessness. The constitution of the Godslayers was to repel all magic spells below the divine level, be it beneficial or harmful. Although teleportation magic spells that entered the body could work, it was obvious that teleportation magic couldn't be carried out in the body. This also meant that teleportation magic couldn't work on Wu Ming. Wu Ming had used a portal before, but that was because the portal was a channel established in 2 places and didn't have any effect on Wu Ming's body, so it could be used. It could be considered a trick. However, Wu Ming hadn't been to England in this world, so he couldn't use the portal. As a last resort, the 3 of them could only take a plane to England at the airport. On the plane, in the first-class cabin, Wu Ming complained, "I have to say the Godslayer's physique is really troublesome sometimes." "Don't say that, Lord Wu Ming. Let's not talk about having a problematic physique. Even if it's something even worse, many people would still want to become Godslayers," Alice said with a smile. "Seriously, Wu Ming, you should be content. You're now one of the only 7 kings in the world," Erica complained. "That's true, Lord Wu Ming. You should be content." Alice and Erica both laughed. However, Wu Ming stared at Alice. What's wrong, Lord Wu Ming? Why are you looking at me like that?" Alice blushed a little, her hands clasped together awkwardly. "It's nothing. I just feel that Alice is really beautiful now." Wu Ming smiled. "Huh? Why? Why do you say that, Lord Wu Ming?" Alice blushed slightly as she spoke with some shyness. "Because you're very similar to a friend of mine," Wu Ming said. "Rather than a friend, she's more like a confidant. Her smile is very beautiful. Every time I see her smiling face, my heart feels as if it's being cleansed," Wu Ming said with a nostalgic expression. Wu Ming thought of Jeanne d'Arc. Alice was just like Jeanne d'Arc. She was calm, peaceful, and beautiful. "Is that so? Then I'm honored," Alice said with a smile. As for why Wu Ming did not feel this way when he faced Erica, it was because he was reminded of Erica Ainsworth. Moreover, Erica gave Wu Ming the impression that she was a strategic type knight. That's right, she was like a cunning vixen. Erica suddenly looked at Wu Ming. She narrowed her eyes and said, "I have a feeling that you're thinking of something rude." Wu Ming, how is that possible? "It's just an illusion." Wu Ming smiled awkwardly. "Then, Lord Wu Ming, do you mind telling us the name of your friend?" Alice also wanted to know more about someone who could be called a friend by Wu Ming, who was both the god of disobedience and the god slayer. Erica also looked at Wu Ming curiously, hoping that Wu Ming could answer. Wu Ming naturally would not dampen their spirits. Therefore, Wu Ming said, "Her name is Jeanne." "Jeanne?" The 2 girls were somewhat confused. After all, this name sounded like the name of an ordinary girl. However, with Wu Ming's identity, could the girl he befriended, and even the girl who was his confidant, be an ordinary girl? Obviously, it was impossible. While the 2 girls were puzzled, Wu Ming added, "Also known as Jeanne d'Arc." "Jeanne d'Arc?" The 2 girls exclaimed in surprise. When Wu Ming said this, the 2 girls understood. Although the name Jeanne d'Arc sounded like an ordinary girl's name, if there was a famous Jeanne d'Arc, it would be her. Could it be the Saintess of France, Jeanne d'Arc? Erica asked. Alice also looked at Wu Ming with concern in her eyes. Wu Ming nodded with a smile and said, "Although she is France's Jeanne d'Arc, she has always denied that she is the Saintess. Ever since I led the people to war, from the moment I raised the flag, my hands have been stained with blood." This is what she once said to me. Because Jeanne d'Arc was canonized hundreds of years after she was executed, logically speaking, she should not have said such a thing. But after all, Wu Ming's origin was mysterious, so the 2 girls did not ask how Jeanne d'Arc knew that they were the Saintess. Then, with the feeling of the plane sinking, the 3 knew that they were about to arrive in England, so they did not discuss anything else. After getting off the plane, a tomboy walked towards the 3 of them. "All looks like someone is here to pick me up." Alice smiled. The tomboy in front of Alice walked over and said to Wu Ming, "You must be the king of disobedience, Lord Wooming. I'm sorry for the trouble my young lady has caused you. Erickson bowed to Wooming apologetically. That's not the case. I actually quite like Alice, Wooming said politely. Erickson seemed to have understood something, and his pupil shrank. Then he said, although I am very happy that Lord Wooming and Miss Alice got married, now is not the time to celebrate. Marquis Warban is here. Marquis Warban. Alice and Erickson were shocked. Wooming frowned and thought for a moment before saying to Erickson, he's here to see me, right? See you? Lord Wooming. Erickson and Alice were both confused. After all, Wooming and Warban did not have any direct contact, so logically speaking, the two of them should not be related. Alice thought of something and quickly said, could it be the Gorgon Stone? Chapter 172. It was an ordinary car. Erickson was in the driver's seat, Alice was in the passenger seat, and Wooming and Erica were in the back. After a simple explanation of the situation, Erickson brought the three of them into the car. No one spoke in the car. Firstly, it was because of Marquis Woban. Secondly, it was because of the oppressive atmosphere. Going back to the topic Alice had mentioned earlier, Woban was here for the Gorgon Stone. After all, with Marquis Woban's personality, it was very likely that he was here for the Gorgon Stone, which could attract the attention of the god of disobedience. But even though it is very likely that Woban is here for the Gorgon Stone, it is also possible that he is here for me, Wooming suddenly said. Wooming looked around at Erica and Alice and continued, you have to know that even though I am a god slayer, I am still a god of disobedience. Erica and Alice instantly understood when Wooming said this. With Marquis Woban's personality, he would definitely find a god of disobedience to hunt, but he wouldn't reject a god slayer of his own kind. If there was an existence that was both a god slayer and a god of disobedience, then it is very likely that Marquis Woban will come looking for trouble with you, Erica said. Alice said with some concern, not to mention, the Gorgon Stone is still in your hands, Lord Wooming. Marquis Woban will definitely not mind taking it for himself. He wants to fight me and deal with Athena at the same time. What an energetic old man, Wooming said with some sarcasm. Erickson still maintained his duties as the driver and didn't say a word. It seemed that Erickson was still a little afraid of Wooming. However, there was nothing that could be done about it. After all, in the eyes of the Sage Council of Greenwich, who specialized in the study of gods' layers, all gods' layers were terrifying. In any case, the enemy is already here. I'm afraid we have no choice but to fight. Erica sighed. Alice, on the other hand, seemed a little worried. Wooming said, don't worry, Alice. I will fight with Marquis Warban within my barrier. It won't affect the surrounding cities. Alice paused for a moment, then nodded. Although Wooming said so, the worry in Alice's eyes was still there. Every time she looked at Wooming, the worry in her eyes deepened. Because of the arrival of Marquis Wooming, Erica and Wooming decided not to go to Alice's house. At the request of Wooming, Erickson stopped the car by the roadside. Wooming and Erica got out of the car. Alice still looked worriedly at Wooming and Erica. Please be extremely careful. If possible, please do not cross swords with Marquis Warban. Please use words to resolve the issue. Although Wooming didn't want to complain, Wooming still had to say it in his heart. Is it possible for the God Slayer to resolve the issue with words? Don't worry. With me, Erica Blantley, who has inherited the Diable Dragon, my master will have nothing to worry about, Erica said as she patted her chest. Of course, this was only if she could guarantee that she wouldn't be at a disadvantage when talking with Marquis Warban. Alice nodded and said, if it's Miss Erica, I can be a little more assured. Again, please be extremely careful. After that, Erickson sped away from the place even faster than before. Am I that scary? Wooming pointed at himself and said, you're the Demon King. It's natural for Miss Erica to be afraid of you. Erica giggled and covered her mouth. Wooming shrugged helplessly. Then, the two of them came to a large building. This was the exclusive residence that the Sage Parliament of Greenwich had built for Marquis Warban after learning that he was coming. Wooming and Erica looked at the roof and looked at each other. This should be the address that Erickson provided for Marquis Warban. Wooming sighed. Speaking of which, the Sage Council sure has a lot of free time on their hands. They actually built such an exclusive residence for the God Slayer that's about to arrive. It's so grand that I feel bad about destroying it, Wuming continued. Erica looked at Wuming helplessly and said, "That's because Marquis Warband is a veteran God Slayer who has been famous for a long time. Even the Sage Parliament of Greenwich, which specializes in investigating God Slayers, doesn't know the number of his powers and the specific abilities of his powers. Because the Sage Parliament of Greenwich was established in the middle of the 19th century, and Marquis Warband killed a God Slayer in the early 18th century, even the Sage Parliament, which specialized in God Slayers, didn't know about Marquis Warband's powers. You must be careful, my lord. Don't worry. Even so, I don't think I can lose. After all, I'm the master of the Red Devil, Diable Rouge," Wuming joked. "As expected of my lord. This is a master worthy of my service." The corners of Erica's mouth curled up, revealing a brilliant smile. "Then let's go. Let's meet this old man." With that, Wuming and Erica stepped into the large building. At the top of the building, a tall and thin old man in a black trench coat was sitting on a throne. A magic array was engraved in the center of the hall, and a girl with long chestnut-colored hair and white ceremonial robes knelt in the center of the magic array. Beside Marquis Warband stood a mage who looked like a corpse and whose face couldn't be seen clearly. He held a crystal ball in his hand and placed it in front of Marquis Warband. Looking at the crystal ball in front of him, Marquis Warband's lips curled up into a smile. His emerald-like vertical pupils exuded a wolf-like gaze. Marquis Warband looked at the Caucasian girl with a silver-white ponytail who was half kneeling with her head lowered. The young girl was wearing a black military uniform with yellow edges. She had a blue-gray striped shawl draped over her shoulders, a matching short skirt, white knee-high socks, and brown high boots. Her silver-white hair was tied into a high ponytail with a thin blue thread. The young girl seemed to be full of exotic charm. "Now is the time to show your strength. Don't disappoint me, Liliana Kranikar." Liliana lowered her head even more and said, "Yes, master. I won't disappoint my lord." With that, the girl called Liliana left. It seemed like she was going to stop Wuming and Erica. Marquis Warband looked at the crystal ball with joy and said, "Let me see how you, the god of disobedience and the God Slayer, can break through my servant. Let's use your strength to prove whether or not I need this witch." With that, Marquis Warband's wolf-like green eyes looked at the girl in ceremonial robes, kneeling in the center of the magic array. "God," the girl prayed. Chapter 173. As soon as they walked into the building, Wuming and Erica were attacked by a large number of undead. After slashing the last undead with Reinhardt, Erica turned to Wuming, who had dealt with some of the undead and was standing by the side, watching her on the phone. After seeing Erica destroy the last undead, Wuming hung up the phone. "Thank you for your hard work, Erica," Wuming said. "It's my honor to clear the way from Master." Erica said with a charming smile, "That may be the case, but these undead are all at the level of Grand Knights. Nominally, they are the strongest fighting force below the God Slayer." Wuming was right. Each of these materialized undead had the power of a Great Knight, which was the highest level below the God Slayer. Erica, who was only 16 years old, had reached the Great Knight level at this moment. Because of her loyalty to Wuming, she received the title of Red Devil. The reason why she was said to be the strongest combat power below the God Slayer was that there was now an additional level, Paladin. The former Red Demon, Diable Rouge, Erica's uncle, Paul Brantley, who fought against the Black Prince Yarick with Alice, was promoted to a Paladin because of his deeds of fighting against the God Slayer. Because Paul's level had reached the highest Great Knight level, and above that was the God Slayer. Therefore, Greenwich's Sage Council updated a new level, Paladin. It could be said that the level of Paladin was specially set up for Paul. As for who else would resist the God Slayer in the future, maybe they would also be promoted to Paladin. Because the theorem that humans could not defeat the God Slayer had been deeply rooted in people's hearts, the level of Paladin was set up for those who were above Great Knight, but not the God Slayer. Erica, who was only 16 years old, was able to reach the level of Great Knight. Coupled with her excellent character, it could be seen how good Erica was as a knight. Of course, but it will be better if you leave these people to me, Wooming. Erica Brantley, will clear everything for my master. At this moment, Erica was like a proud lioness, full of pride. Yes, next time. I'm in a hurry now. I can't wait to see this old man. Afterward, Wooming and Erica walked up the stairs leading to a higher floor. Was that a call from Salvatore just now? Erica asked Wooming as they hurried along. Well, he's the only one who can know my phone number and call me. Wooming looked a little tired at the moment and sighed. After being knocked unconscious by Wooming, Salvatore took almost 3 days to wake up. The first thing Salvatore did after waking up was to call Wooming. At this time, Wooming came to Marquis Wooming's building, so the scene of Erica cleaning up the undead appeared. That guy said something like, "You must be looking for trouble with old Master Warband now, so don't die. That old man is quite difficult to deal with, my good friend Wooming." Speaking of which, when did I become his best friend? Wooming smiled calmly. It was obvious that he felt helpless towards this fellow. Erica smiled slightly, showing a charming smile at the corner of her mouth. Salvatore must have regarded you as a strong opponent. You should know that Salvatore is an idiot in all aspects except swordsmanship. Since he can remember your name, Wooming, it means that he has regarded you as a strong opponent. In fact, Erica was right. Salvatore was knocked unconscious in a few moves. Although there was a certain degree of luck and the other party was not familiar with Wooming's ability, Salvatore thought that a loss was a loss. As a result, Salvatore remembered Wooming. I wanted to ask him if he knew about Marquis Warband's authority. As a result, this guy said, "How can I remember this kind of thing? Just hit him. I don't know what to say." Wooming sighed again. "I'm also a fool for counting on that idiot." Erica smiled. Wooming is more like a human than the god of disobedience and the god slayer. Wooming could not help but think of his previous life. If Wooming was not picked up by the old dean, who knows what he would have become now? He might become even weirder because no one took care of him, and he would look down on humans completely. Because of this, Wooming respected the old man who had passed away the most. Wooming was indeed a problematic child. Wooming could not despise humans now, thanks to the people Wooming met. Wooming's second most respected person and his skills mentor, Wooming was naturally very important to Wooming. Ireland, Britain, Uruk, Nassalic, France, and Toki City, Japan. Wooming recalled the lands he had experienced and the various people he had met. Thinking of this, Wooming was in a much better mood. Even the desire to fight with Marquis Warband had lessened a lot. That's because I have a bond. Looking at Wooming, who was smiling particularly brightly, Erica was also stunned for a moment. Then, she smiled as well. "Then, can I also be a part of it?" Wooming smiled and did not answer. Erica, on the other hand, saw the answer in Wooming's eyes. For some reason, the other party did not stop them at all. Wooming and Erica did not encounter any enemies along the way. In the end, when Wooming and Erica were about to reach the top, a young girl walked out of the darkness. "So it's you, Lily." It seemed to be someone Erica knew. Seeing that she had taken out a silver military knife, Wooming did not say anything and continued to walk to the top. "I'll leave it to you, Erica." "Yes, my lord." Erica watched Wooming leave before looking at Liliana. "It's really fate to meet you here. I thought the rumors that you went to Marquis Warband's place were false." Liliana looked at Erica with a serious expression. Holding the silver military knife in her hand, she said, "There's no need to catch up. I received Marquis Warband's order to stop you. Although I can't stop the advance of the King of Disobedience, I can stop your advance." As she spoke, Liliana's military knife began to glow. "Is that so? Then let's try it." Erica held the thin sword and placed it in front of her. Then, she continued, "It's time for a duel, Lionheart, Coeur de Lion. My wings become the steel of the phantom blade. Silver master craftsman, Il Maestro, grant me strength." As two prodigies of two Italian magic societies in the attendance of two kings, Erica and Liliana began to fight for their respective masters. At the top was an empty hall. In the center of the hall was a complicated and precise magic array. In the center sat a young girl with long chestnut-colored hair and ceremonial robes. In the center of the hall, a thin but shrewd old man sat there. Wu Ming slowly walked to this floor, as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. In the darkness, Marquis Warbin's green vertical pupils exuded a cunning gaze. His gaze was fixed on Wu Ming. Wu Ming looked at Warban. Neither of them spoke. The atmosphere began to become tense. Only the chestnut-haired girl trembled under the pressure of the two kings. Chapter 174. After about 10 minutes of stalemate, Marquis Warban spoke first. I didn't expect the god of disobedience to become a god-slayer. This is something I have never encountered in the past 300 years. Warban's voice sounded a bit old. He was an old man with a story, but Wu Ming didn't care about that. Now I'm a god-slayer. Let's not talk about the identity of the god of disobedience. Warban, you came to England to find me, right? Wu Ming crossed his arms in front of his chest with a calm expression and a smile on his face. Of course, otherwise, I wouldn't have brought this witch all the way from Japan to England. I am very interested in the Gorgon Stone and the fact that you are a god-slayer, but I didn't expect you to come to me on your own accord. However, this saves me a lot of effort. The green light in Marquis Warbin's eyes shone even more brightly, Warban said, and looked at the girl in the center of the magic formation. Wu Ming also looked at the witch. Generally speaking, the Yuan witch was the descendant of the god ancestor. Those girls would be given the highest level of Yuan witch, and, generally, they would have the special skill spirit vision. Alice, who possessed spirit vision, was also known as the witch concubine. However, Alice was more like the witch Yuan, an extension of the witch concubine. These magi all relied on their own cultivation to obtain their spirit vision, so their spirit vision was much more powerful than those who were born magi. Just like Alice could see the future for a long time, the witch kneeling in the magic formation couldn't see the future too far away like Alice. But this kind of witch had other functions, such as summoning the god of disobedience. Do you want this witch to use Gorgon's stone to summon the god of disobedience? Wu Ming continued. Judging from the level of this magic formation and the number of people who can summon the god of disobedience, once the summoning ritual is successful, this witch's life will be gone. Wu Ming's words caused Miss Witch, who was inside the magic array, to shudder. However, Wu Ming noticed her shudder. It seems that our Marquis Warban did not inform this young lady of the consequences. Of course, Marquis Warban stood up and continued. It's just a human. If it's broken, we could just replace it. The words of the Marquis caused Witch Yuan's heart to sink. She no longer had any hope of being rescued. After all, there were two demon kings here. Is that so, Wu Ming? Looks like you can understand the meaning of human existence after becoming a god-slayer, Wu Ming said sarcastically. Then, I'll take back my words. Wu Ming walked towards Miss Witch. Today, I'll fight you as the god of disobedience, Warban. Wu Ming stood in front of Miss Witch, protecting her. Then, Wu Ming looked at Wu Ming. Let me once again carry out my identity as the god of disobedience and protect the humans. Then, as the god slayer, I'll kill you who protects the humans. At this moment, both the god of disobedience and the god slayer burst forth with their magic power. A massive pillar of magic power materialized above Wu Ming and Warban, breaking through the ceiling. Miss Witch recovered from her despair and looked at the god of disobedience and the god slayer standing in front of her with a trace of doubt in her eyes. The undead king's nest of darkness, the land of the opposite sex, the home of absolute evil. Wu Ming took out the staff of Anzi-Ergen from the golden ripples and began to chant an incantation. Marquis Warban looked at Wu Ming with interest and did not choose to stop him. Show thy 10-layered barrier, and seize the enemy who dares to provoke me. Anzi-Ergen slammed the staff of Anzi-Ergen on the ground. In an instant, Wu Ming and Warban's vision turned white. When his eyes took in the scenery once more, Marquis Warban found himself on a sparkling, boundless ice plain. Oh, this is interesting, really interesting. The god of disobedience. Marquis Warband became excited and began to laugh loudly. Suddenly, a piercing cold wind began to blow. This feeling, I haven't felt this feeling of death for a long time. Ha ha ha. Feeling the cold wind gradually blowing around him, Marquis Warband laughed happily. It was obvious that the cold wind could cause harm to him. For the bored Marquis Warband, that was exactly what he was looking for. Wuming looked at Warband, who was covered in a layer of frost, but he did not show any complacency. As the one who controlled the inherent barrier, Nasric's fifth ice layer appeared in front of Nasric. Although the gods' layers had extremely terrifying magic resistance, the essence of the inherent enchantment was a secret technique that allowed the spiritual world to invade the real world and drag the people around it into the spiritual world. Therefore, the inherent enchantment was effective even against the gods' layers. Of course, in the eyes of Miko, Wuming and Warband disappeared in an instant. The fifth layer of Nasalic had a passive effect that continuously froze the intruder, and that effect ignored the enemy's defense. When the Crusade team invaded Nasalic because they had items that could resist this effect, or they relied on their level to directly pass the fifth layer, the fifth layer did not stop many enemies. However, this didn't mean that the fifth level of Nasalic and the other areas of Nasalic were weak. The reason why a game was because it was challenging. As a hidden dungeon, it was extremely difficult to clear Nasalic. In addition, Nasalic was transformed into a guild encampment by the current members of Anziwergong, and its performance was enhanced a lot. The reason why the players were able to break through Nasalic was that the enemy had a large number of people, and the second reason was that the enemy had items that could resist the field effect. One must know that the game Yggdrasil was famous for its high degree of freedom, which led to many bug-level items and skills being countered by even more bug-like items and skills. That was why the game Yggdrasil attracted the players with such a high degree of freedom. However, many of the bug-level effects in Nasalic had become great weapons in other worlds without game items. The eternal frozen wind that blew on the ice field was such a negative bug. In short, Marquis Warband couldn't stand the damage. However, for the Godslayer's physique, that alone could not kill him. Come on, the unknown god of disobedience. Let me see your power. Marquis Warband roared and turned into a giant werewolf. Some of his hair fell from his body, and he turned into a 2-meter-tall gray wolf with rat fur. Oh, the giant wolves rushed toward Wuming, and their greedy mouths exuded a foul stench. Wuming did not even look at them. He gently raised the staff of Anziwergong, and countless white flames instantly erupted on the giant wolves. In just a flash, Wuming's wolves were all burned to death by Wuming's flames. Chapter 175. What? Marquis Warband was very surprised. He knew that Roland was not someone to be messed with, so he specifically summoned those high-level Grand Knights, but Roland was able to destroy them all in an instant. What kind of magic is this? Marquis Warband roared from the giant werewolf. A magic trick that works is a good magic trick. Wuming did not answer Marquis Warband's question. Instead, he smiled a little sarcastically. The staff of Anziwergong had an automatic attack function. It was comparable to a world-class item with a large number of high-level spells. If the staff of Anziwergong didn't have a passive skill like the World's Blessing, it could be said to be a world-class item. Furthermore, the magic within the staff of Anziwergong that had been upgraded to a relic had also been upgraded, becoming an existence that could harm the gods. Wuming took the initiative to activate the staff of Anziwergong's skill, Holy Fire, which was a 9th-tier spell that dealt great damage to targets with negative justice value. Warband's giant werewolves did not look like they had positive justice value. Naturally, those werewolves were instantly killed. You're right, this is more interesting. Slowly, rain clouds began to gather in the sky within the inherent boundary. Within a few breaths, the rain clouds had completely gathered. Wuming could not help but frown. Nazaric's barrier was good, but it was too similar to the real world. So how about this? Warband's body began to burst out a large amount of curse power, and dark purple lightning condensed in his mouth. With a howl, Wuming spat out the purple lightning from his mouth, and a huge purple lightning pillar rushed toward Wuming. The emerald on the staff of Anzurgen flickered, and a large number of green vines broke out of the ice and formed a super thick wooden shield in front of Wuming. Boom! Wuming's figure was buried by a large amount of dust caused by the impact of the lightning and the wooden shield. Wuming's figure instantly appeared on the other side of the smoke. It seems that using magic is too much of a bully for an old man like you who doesn't know magic. Do you need me to fight you without using magic? Wuming mocked. Stop joking. Even if your magic has reached the realm of gods, it can't do any significant damage to me. You're just saying that because you're at your wit's end. Marquis Oben roared. Tisk, Wuming spat unhappily. In fact, Marquis Wuming was right. Although the magic that Wuming had learned was useful, it was not very useful on the Godslayer who had extremely high resistance to curses. It was the same for the Loon runes. Although Silent Wonder could release the magic god seal of the first rune, Silent Wonder did not think that the Grade 8 Noble Phantasm would be able to cause much damage to Marquis Warband. At the very least, he would be able to tear off a layer of Warband's skin. In that case, I'll use this sword. After saying that, Wuming put the staff of Ains Urgong back into the golden ripple that suddenly appeared, and then took out a silver-white, long sword from it. X-Silver, that's the name of this sword. Wuming held the holy sword and said to Wuming, X-Silver, this is X-Silver. Marquis Oben was surprised. Wuming's eyes lit up. Does Marquis Oben also know about this sword? Marquis Oben said with some excitement. Of course, it would be strange if I didn't know about this sword. I didn't expect the 7th Godslayer to be a British silver dragon. The rain clouds in the sky became denser, and the power of lightning contained in them became more powerful. Ha ha! This trip is really worth it. Marquis Oben laughed and turned back into a human from his werewolf form. The strongest and most mysterious knight of the Knights of the Round Table, King Arthur's most trusted man, one of the only 2 beliefs of the Knights of the Round Table, the noble knight who incarnated into the legendary British silver dragon, Villotharanst. Marquis Oben was a little excited. Such a powerful enemy must be able to satisfy his boredom. When the world judged Wuming as the god of disobedience, Wuming thought of such a result. His own mythology was probably the evolution of what happened to him in the history of the M-shaped moon. And the mythology of the world of the Godslayers was made up by people, so it was not surprising that a god had several divine names, and even a god in other pantheons. Holding the X-Silver in both hands, Wuming said with a smile full of fighting spirit on his face, It doesn't feel good to be known by the later generations, but, Marquis Oben, come and fight me. Wuming's ruby-like eyes flickered. Come, Villotharanst. Marquis Oben roared angrily, and his body began to change. This time, the transformation was different from before, as dragon scales began to grow all over his body. Soon, Marquis Oben's transformation was complete, and what appeared in front of Wuming was a giant black dragon with ferocious dragon scales all over its body. Wuming estimated that the black dragon was about 60 meters long without its wings. I haven't slain a dragon before. You should feel honored, Oben. So, Wuming directly released his noble artifact, the stars hidden in the world. The X-Silver sword began to emit a white light, and the black dragon roared angrily, flapping its wings and rushing towards Wuming. The holy sword that can wipe out all evil. Looking at the charging Oben, Wuming held the sword with both hands. Cracks appeared on the sword, and an even more dazzling golden light burst out from it. Don't cover your light anymore. The X-Silver sword was completely shattered, and a dazzling golden sword of light appeared. It kept floating, and the silver sword fragments attached to the golden sword of light. The black underworld flames that the black dragon spewed out were all blocked by the Aurora Pillar. Shine! The sword of light expanded and soared into the sky. The black dragon rushed in front of Wuming and swung its giant dragon claw with a dense aura of death. Silver meteor! Roar, roar, roar! The black dragon let out a miserable roar. Instantly, dazzling white starlight filled the fifth level, and it did not stop for a long time. In the outside world, Erica and Liliana were constantly fighting, and their swords were flying everywhere. However, one was flying in the sky, while the other was running on the ground. But anyone with a discerning eye could see that Erica was slightly at a disadvantage. Erica suddenly jumped back, and after a short pause, she said, "As expected of you, Lily." Liliana had the bloodline of the witch, and she had learned the long-lost, difficult flying magic, which was why she could fly in the sky. "Don't talk nonsense. This is a battlefield." Liliana was a bit irritable. Erica continued, "Logically speaking, you shouldn't be the kind of person who would accept a brutal demon king like Marquis Oban." Liliana did not say anything. Instead, she looked at Erica with an irritated gaze. Could it be? Erica seemed to have thought of something, and she continued, "Because I'm loyal to Wuming, your grandfather offered you to Marquis Oban out of jealousy." "TSK," Liliana said unhappily, looking at Erica with an ugly expression. "Talk is useless. Erica Browntree, keep fighting." Having said that, Liliana dashed toward Erica in a flash. "Please wait a moment." Suddenly, an old but rather robust voice sounded. Chapter 176. Please wait a moment. An old and rather robust voice sounded. A white-haired old man in a butler's uniform appeared between Erica and Liliana. "Mr. Sebastian, why are you here?" Erica asked in surprise. Erica, who had been with Wuming, naturally knew that her master didn't contact Sebastian, so she was surprised by his sudden appearance. "Who are you?" Liliana flew back to the ceiling and looked at the old man who appeared silently between her and Erica. "I'm Sebastian Dean, the butler of Lord Wuming. Nice to meet you." Sebastian bowed to Liliana and then looked at Erica. "Miss Erica, I'm here to support you on the orders of Lord Wuming. Of course, this doesn't mean that Lord Wuming doesn't believe in your abilities. It's just that Lord Wuming chose to send me out as a precaution. After all, this was the temporary lair of the enemy's god's lairs, so it was inevitable that accidents would happen. That was why Wuming had Sebastian come to England from Italy. As for why Erica didn't see Wuming contacting Sebastian, it was because everyone in Nazalek had the inherent ability to communicate mentally. Wuming naturally contacted Sebastian without Erica knowing. Then, Sebastian said to the two of them, "How about the two of you stop fighting for the time being? With your strength, both of you will only suffer in the end. Even if you say so, I, Liliana Kranikar, won't back down so easily." As a noble knight, Liliana wouldn't back down even if she knew the outcome of the battle. "I can't pretend that I didn't hear that, Mr. Sebastian. I have a secret technique to deal with Lily." Erica was dissatisfied with Sebastian's words, but after all, Sebastian didn't know Erica well. Erica could win on her own. After all, Erica had something on Sebastian. The two girls retorted, unwilling to be outdone. "Please calm down, Miss Erica, Miss Liliana. The battle between Lord Wuming and Marquis Warban is over." Sebastian calmly said something that couldn't be calmed down. The two girls were shocked. Then, they hurriedly rushed to the top floor. Sebastian, on the other hand, began to walk downstairs. "There's nothing else for me to do. Should I go back to Italy first, or stay in England for a while?" Sebastian rubbed his chin. "I remember there was a shop selling biscuits that were very popular on the way here. Should I go and try it?" Sebastian's figure gradually disappeared into the corridor as he spoke. At the top floor of the building, Wanli Furu was sitting in the center of the magic circle in fear. "God, please protect me." Wanli Guyoli closed his eyes and clenched his fists, praying nonstop. Guyoli did not look at Marquis Warban, who was sitting on the throne and looking at the crystal ball beside him. She knew how terrifying the gods' layers were, not to mention that the one on the throne was the most senior and most brutal of the 7 gods' layers she had met 4 years ago. Originally, Guyoli had been prepared to sacrifice himself before the ceremony, but Marquis Oban's servant of death's cage shattered his resolve. That was the ability to turn the humans, divine beasts, demons, and artificial creatures with souls they had killed into living corpses. In other words, the living dead would be preserved in the world and become absolutely loyal servants. In this way, even if Wanligigi were to sacrifice himself, he wouldn't be able to avoid being stabbed by Marquis Oban before committing suicide. In the end, he would still become Marquis Oban's servant. Thus, as if he had accepted his fate, Yoritani accepted Marquis Warban's request and accepted the fate of being the only supporter of the ritual to summon the god of disobedience. Seeing Miss Liliana being sent out by Marquis Warban, Wanligiga knew that the other king had arrived. It seems like the summoning god relic is in the king's hands. Wanligiga Yuli thought to herself. She then shook her head. This had nothing to do with a witch like her, who had no right to speak. At most, she would interact with the king later. Soon, the other king arrived before Marquis Warban. Looks like a young king. Wanligigu Yuli stopped looking after glancing at the king. One had to know that kings were brutal. Perhaps the king would punish him for looking at the king a few more times. While the two kings were talking, Wanligigu Yuli heard that Liliana had been killed by the invading king. Miss Liliana, the kind-hearted Wanligigu Yuli, was a little sad. After all, the king had helped him 4 years ago. Do I look like a brutal person to you, Marquis Warban? However, the new king said, Is Miss Liliana all right? Wanligigu Yuli was secretly relieved when he thought about this. Subsequently, the intense battle that Wanligigu Yuli expected did not happen. Subsequently, the new king told Wanligigu Yuli the truth that he would die after summoning the god of disobedience alone. Wanligigu Yuli was shocked. After all, Marquis Warban did not tell him about this. Wanligigu Yuli had lost all hope. He would die no matter what in front of the two kings. And yet, the new king was standing in front of him. Then, I take back what I said earlier. Today, I'll fight you as the god of disobedience, Warban. The god of disobedience. Wanligigu Yuli seemed to have heard something incredible. Let me carry out my identity as the god of disobedience again. I'll protect the humans and this witch. Protect me? Wanligigu Yuli was doubtful. She could not believe that the Devil King, the God Slayer, would protect a witch like her. After the two kings unleashed their powerful devil powers, the new king took out a strange dark scepter. The moment he chanted an incantation, the two kings seemed to have been sucked into something and disappeared into thin air. Wanligigu Yuli did not think of running away. Even if she did not know where she would go. Moreover, the Devil King would definitely catch her again. The two kings must be fighting in some unknown place. For some reason, Wanligigu Yuli hoped that the new king would win more than Marquis Warban. Perhaps it was because of the words protect this which Wanligigu Yuli thought. God, please protect me, protect me. Then Wanligigu Yuli returned to the state where she clasped her hands and closed her eyes in prayer. However, compared to the previous prayers to the gods, this prayer was more specific. Darkness shrouded the hall. Only the ritual fire was left, shining in the darkness, protecting the witch who was praying to the gods. Chapter 177. Erica and Liliana ran to the top floor and saw that the hall was not damaged at all, if the ceiling was missing. Wuming was currently carrying 1,000-mile Furu in a princess carry. Erica and Liliana were shocked by the fact that the hull wasn't damaged much. Seeing Erica and Liliana's arrival, Wuming quickly smiled and greeted them. Oh, I won. Erica breathed a sigh of relief, while Liliana had an ugly expression on her face. Where did Marquis Woban go, and why did Wanli Furu faint? It all started a few minutes ago. Wuming injured Marquis Woban, who turned into a black dragon, with his noble phantasm, Silver Meteor. No, it should be said that he killed him once. Meteor Silver Radiance, Silver Meteor, level, EX type, evil noble phantasm distance. Maximum catch. This was a treasure created by the planet suppression. Silver Meteor, which was truly freed from the restriction, had the effect of judging the enemy as evil. As long as the enemy was the master's enemy, the person who must be defeated, and so on, the Holy Sword would mark it with the evil attribute. The target of the judgment was both a person and an object, and even concepts such as space and time could be included in the judgment. Wuming didn't even need to mark Marquis Woban with the evil attribute. Marquis Woban, who didn't take human life seriously, had already been judged as evil by X-Silver Meteor. Wuming himself didn't slay a dragon, and X-Silver didn't have a similar legend, so it couldn't cause additional damage to the dragon. However, Wuming had X-Silver Meteor's judgment. Coupled with Wuming's large-scale magic supply, he was able to kill Woban. One should know that the relic X-Silver Meteor was one of Wuming's trump cards. If it could not defeat the God Slayer, it would be a disgrace to the sacred sword X-Silver. However, Wuming's barrier, Nazalik's fifth layer, was completely destroyed by Wuming's noble phantasm. Marquis Wuming seemed to have the power of resurrection. The moment the fixed boundary was broken, Marquis Wuming released a powerful burst of mana. Then, Marquis Wuming and Marquis Wuming returned to the hall. As soon as they met, Marquis Warband clutched his heart weakly. "Damn it, you win this time, remember this." Villo there answered. With that, Marquis Warband turned into a strong gust of wind and left the hall without a ceiling. Phew! Wu Ming let out a long sigh and returned the X-Silver to the Golden Ripple. In fact, as the most senior Godslayer, if Marquis Woban had not gotten addicted to the fight, he would have been able to fight Wu Ming dozens of times, regardless of the final outcome. After Marquis Wu Ming was infected by the Godslayer's a fighting frenzy, he directly used his body to resist Wu Ming's noble phantasm. The result was failure and even death. That also proved that the Godslayers were a group of problematic children. That was why humans could not ignore the Godslayers and serve them as kings. After Marquis Wu Ming left, Wu Ming looked at Wanli Guyoli in the center of the magic circle. As a result, he found that Wanli Guyoli had fainted. It seemed that when Wu Ming broke the fixed boundary, a small part of the residual power spread to Wanli Guyoli, who was kneeling in the magic circle, and knocked him out. "Is it my fault again?" Wu Ming scratched the back of his head and said awkwardly. Ever since he became a Godslayer, he liked fighting more and more, especially when it was easy to use too much power in battle. For example, Silent Wonder could weaken the magic attack of the Meteor Silver Splendor when it was about to break through his inherent barrier. That way, he might be able to ensure that Guyoli, who was outside, would not be knocked unconscious by the shockwaves. However, Wu Ming, who was in a mood to fight, did not care about that. Instead, he increased the power of X-Silver Meteor. Naturally, Wanli Guyoli was knocked out. Fortunately, we managed to control it at the last moment. Not just Miss, which even Erica and the others in this building would have been affected. Wu Ming wiped the non-existent cold sweat off his forehead. It seemed that the Godslayer was the Demon King for some reason. Wu Ming walked to Wanli Guyoli's side and began to check if he had something on his hand. Then, Wu Ming drew runes out of thin air, and several Lune runes representing healing, cleansing, and holy attached to Wanli Guyoli's body. Then, Wu Ming put one hand under Wanli Guyoli's armpit and the other hand under Wanli Guyoli's legs, and picked him up in a princess carry. At this time, Erica and Liliana arrived just in time. This was the scene that Erica and Liliana had seen just now. Neither of the two girls spoke, which made Wu Ming feel awkward. At this moment, for some reason, Wu Ming felt that he was a pervert who wanted to hold the unconscious girl in his arms. In order to avoid misunderstanding between the two girls, Wu Ming said with a smile, "Yo, I won." Outside the building, Erickson, who was using the telescopic magic, stopped the magic and called Alice. "Miss Alice, it seems that Lord Wu Ming won." After sending Alice home, Erickson left and asked Erickson to come here to observe and report the result to Alice. Erickson, on the other hand, could not refuse his master's request. After setting up more barriers, Erickson unhurriedly came to a commanding height near the building, where he observed the abnormality of the building with a telescope. "Really? Thank you, Erickson. Come back first." Alice's unique, sweet voice came from the other end of the phone, but it was a little weak. "Yes, Miss Alice." After that, Erickson quickly left the place as if he was fleeing. It seemed that the two Godslayers here really frightened Erickson. Although Ericsson was shocked that the battle between the two kings did not destroy the surroundings, even the building that had been turned into a battlefield, he would never be stingy with his speed when it was time to leave. In a luxurious, aristocratic house, in a gorgeous room, Alice sat on the bed in her pajamas with a sickly flush on her face. Alice weakly placed the phone on the small table beside her and laid down on the bed. Is the side effect of using spirit vision again? Alice covered herself with the quilt and closed her eyes in pain. Please come quickly, Lord Wooming. Chapter 178. The next day, the staff of the Greenwich Sage Parliament started to get busy again. Wooming's arrival drove Marquis Oban away. Although there was no large-scale damage, the building built for Marquis Oban could no longer be used. Putting aside the fierce fight between Erica and Liliana in the building, the aftermath of Silent Wonder's noble phantasm had destroyed the supporting beams of the building. Fortunately, Silent Wonder had used the rune that she used to stabilize the building in time when she fought Berserker, the heroic spirit materialized by the Rancard. Otherwise, the building would have disappeared on the same day. By the way, because Wooming and Marquis Oban did not cause much damage, and Marquis Oban's building was not in a bustling area, the Greenwich Sage Parliament simply used the building's shoddy construction as a cover and successfully covered it up without causing commotion. In addition to covering up the truth, the Greenwich Sage Parliament also had to prepare a residence for the remaining God-Slayer, namely Wooming. If the king were to casually stay in a hotel, not to mention whether Wooming would mind, if the other God-Slayers found out, the Greenwich Sage Parliament would probably cease to exist. Marquis Oban did not care. After all, he had just been injured after the fight with Wooming. However, Bishop Luo Hao from the east would definitely come knocking on his door. Among the Godslayers, the two most arrogant Godslayers were Marquis Oban and Bishop Luo Hao, who were the two most senior Godslayers. Therefore, the Greenwich Sage Parliament started to get busy again, building a residence for Wooming. After that, Wooming said, "I'll just stay at Alice's place." Everyone was stunned. Under the strange gazes of almost all the magicians, Wooming and Erica moved to Alice's place with Guyoli. At a certain moment, Wooming sat peacefully on the sofa of a mansion, drinking a cup of tea. Erickson stood behind Wooming in a panic. After a moment, Wooming spoke. "Are you that worried about me, Miss Erickson?" Wooming turned his head and glanced at Erickson, who was in a suit. How? How could that be? Your Majesty, I have no intention of belittling you." Erickson hurriedly knelt down on one knee. Wooming sighed helplessly. "I won't do anything to Alice. Don't worry." Wooming said so because a few days ago, Wooming directly entered Alice's boudoir while Erickson was weeping in despair and fear. After that, Wooming directly entered Alice's boudoir, closed the door, and stayed there for a few hours. When a man who could be said to be the most powerful man and a very beautiful woman stayed in the same room for a few hours, the result was naturally obvious. Somehow, the news leaked, and almost the entire magic world knew that Wooming, the seventh God-Slayer, the King of Disobedience, and Princess Alice, the daughter of Duke Godding and the White Witch, were married. That lord is really swift and decisive. This was the general impression that all the magicians had of Wooming, the God-Slayer. But in fact, Wooming entered Alice's room only to protect her. Of course, in order to increase efficiency, Wooming chose not to protect her forehead this time, but to deepen their relationship more intimately. Of course, this was also because Alice didn't reject it, so Silent Wonder acted this way. And Erica, who knew that this was a serious matter, didn't stop Wooming. However, she didn't look too happy. After all, there was no saying that the cow that came first would eat the grass later. Ahem. Back to the topic. After Wooming protected Alice for a long time and kissed Wooming for a long time, Alice's cheeks were abnormally red, and then Alice fell asleep because her body received a lot of energy. So, Wooming sat by Alice's bed, took out the Nameless Spellbook from Dragonist, and read it. After all, the spells in the Nameless Spellbook were endless. Even Wooming, as its owner, couldn't master all of them. He could only search for a certain spell when he needed it. In this way, Wooming stayed in Alice's room for a few hours, which led to the wrong relationship between Wooming and Alice being spread all over the magic world. Thinking of Alice's flushed face when she woke up a few hours later, Wooming's lips curled up into a smile. It could be said that it was precisely because Alice fell asleep while kissing and blushed that Erickson was more convinced of their relationship. Later, on the grounds that although the two of you are close, it's still inappropriate to do things during the day. She was actually afraid that her master would be taken advantage of again, so she stayed beside Wooming to supervise him. Seeing Erickson hurriedly kneeling on one knee, Wooming was playful. Since you already know my relationship with Alice, why should I be stingy for a while? Huh? Erickson raised her head in a panic and looked at Wooming. In other words, I can enjoy all this with Alice at night, Miss Erickson. Wooming squinted his eyes and smiled ambiguously. Although her face was a little flushed, Erickson was indeed Alice's personal servant. She could still maintain a calm expression. Okay, I'll stop teasing you. Wooming looked at Erickson, whose expression didn't change much, and said a little disinterestedly, by the way, Alice and the others should be back soon. Wooming looked at the time and calculated that Alice and the others who went shopping should be back soon. Because of Wooming's protection, Alice's body became like a normal person. This was great news for Alice, who couldn't leave the mansion at will and could only use her ghost body. Alice, who was very happy, gracefully kissed Wooming and then happily went shopping with Erica. He could only say, "Speak of the devil." As soon as Wooming finished his words, the door of the house was opened. Alice and Erica came in, dressed with dignity and grace. How was it? Did you have fun shopping? Although he asked this question, Wooming still saw the answer in Alice's eyes. Well, thank you very much, Master Wooming. Alice bowed to Wooming again. There's no need. Now that everyone knows about our relationship, why are you still being so polite? Wooming teased. That's true. Then, please take care of me in the future, Master Wooming. Alice smiled happily. Erickson's face became even more distressed. At this moment, she was sad for her master who was involved with the Godslayer. There would be a lot of dangerous things in the future. Ahem, my king. Mariguchi Yuri has been safely sent back to Japan. The History Editing Committee of the local Magic Association has successfully protected him. Erica interrupted the strange atmosphere between Alice and Wooming. Chapter 179. Seeing that they were getting down to business, Wooming and Alice did not continue. Facing two kings at the same time, that which must be scared. Alice sat on the sofa, and Erickson immediately poured a cup of black tea for Alice. Erickson also sat down and continued. I wasn't scared. The main point is that I heard the report from the escorts. When Wanligu woke up, he asked where our king went. It seems that our king has once again captured the heart of a young girl. Erickson looked at Wooming with a teasing look. Wooming smiled indifferently. Let's stop joking. How is Marquis Woban now? According to the intelligence of the Sage Parliament, the Marquis immediately returned to his base in the Balkans after the battle with you, and then there was no news of him. Alice put down the teacup, put her hands on her lower abdomen, and looked at Wooming elegantly. He used the resurrection authority, so he should not be able to move for a while. Let's not worry about him for now. Wooming crossed his arms and thought for a moment. After all, the restrictions of the resurrection authority were not so easy to break. Even Wooming's vitality, incarnation, which had become a noble phantasm, had restrictions that prevented it from being used for a period of time after the resurrection. After all, it was a complete resurrection, and unlike Marquis Wooming's resurrection, Wooming would recover to his full state after the resurrection. Let's leave it at that for now. Wooming looked around at everyone and stood up. I've decided to leave England tomorrow and go to Japan. Wooming's sudden departure made Alice a little worried. Are you going to verify the contents of the spirit vision? To be honest, Alice was a little worried. After all, the scene she saw was too terrifying. The earth cracked, the sea withered, the volcanoes were ready to erupt, and the sky was filled with smoke and dust. The Divine Sword Envoy and the Divine Sword Envoy were constantly fighting, and destruction was coming. Wooming was not worried. He used the divine aura and touched Alice's head. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything. Affected by the holy aura, Alice's heart instantly calmed down. Don't worry, Your Highness Alice. As the first knight of Wooming, I'll keep an eye on the king and make sure he doesn't run off. Erica comforted her. Then I'll be counting on you, Miss Erica. Alice smiled sweetly. Wooming felt a little helpless. She spoke as if it was easy for him to create chaos. But it was clear that the God Slayers had the constitution to create trouble. That night, almost everyone was asleep, including Wooming. Suddenly, Wooming opened his eyes and looked in front of him. Aloli was lying on Wooming's body. What are you doing here? Wooming was puzzled when he saw Athena's black pupils. However, Wooming did not see any fighting spirit in Athena's eyes, so he did not put up any defensive measures. No matter what, they were both gods of disobedience in principle, and both of them were related to the dragon snake god. In fact, there was no need for them to fight to the death. To be able to wake up the moment I arrived, it seems that you haven't fallen during this period of time, my compatriot. Athena's magnetic voice reached Wooming's ears. Her snake-like eyes revealed a satisfied look of approval. Wooming sat up unhurriedly and hugged Athena, who was still sitting on his body. Wooming was not surprised that Athena could enter the mansion with multiple barriers. After all, Athena was known as the goddess of wisdom. How could a mere modern magic barrier stop Athena? Why did you suddenly come to me? Are you still chasing after the Gorgon stone? Wooming said rather casually and yawned halfway. For some reason, Wooming felt a sense of familiarity with Athena, so he did not fight with her like last time. Athena did not seem to care about being hugged by Wooming. To be exact, she enjoyed Wooming's embrace. Along the way, Athena shifted her body to make herself more comfortable. Athena then looked into Wooming's eyes seriously and said, "Of course, I'm chasing after the snake. Of course I've been chasing after the snake, but I didn't sense the snake's presence this time." Athena was right. The aura of the Gorgon stone had indeed disappeared. To be exact, it was sealed by Wooming. Since Athena retreated, Wooming knew that he would not be able to get in touch with her for the time being. A powerful god relic like the Gorgon stone would not only attract Athena, but Marquis Warban as well. Therefore, Wooming used the advanced sealing spell in the Nameless Spellbook and multiple Lune runes to completely seal the aura of the Gorgon stone. After hearing Athena's words, Wooming extended his hand into the golden ripples that appeared in the air and took out a carved stone that did not contain any mana. What do you think? It took me a lot of effort to seal the Gorgon stone. In addition to that, I placed it in my authority space. You didn't even notice it when you were so close to it. Wooming smiled proudly. Athena looked at Wooming with admiration. I didn't expect you to have mastered so many powerful sealing spells. You're really something Villothoranced. Athena could feel the faint connection from the Gorgon stone. She could not help but touch the Gorgon stone. Moreover, aren't you afraid that I'll take it away from you? Athena placed her hand on the Gorgon stone with a fierce look in her eyes. Wooming smiled. Then he patted Athena's head and said, I can see that you don't have any intention of snatching it. And even if you do, I'm confident that I'll be able to take it back after you've done so. Athena smiled and patted Athena's head. Athena could not help but smile when she saw Wooming's confident expression. She touched Wooming's face and said, As expected of the warrior I've chosen, my compatriot and fellow member of the Draconic Serpent. Looking at your confident smile, even I want to have a good fight with you. Athena was known as the goddess of war, so it was not surprising that she would be easily provoked. Seeing the flames of war in Athena's eyes, Wooming hurriedly interrupted her. By the way, what are you doing here? Fortunately, Athena's fighting spirit had yet to take shape. After hearing Wooming's doubts, Athena calmed down. I have something I need your help with. I'll take you to a place. Athena jumped down from Wooming's bed, grabbed Wooming's hand, and jumped out of the window with Wooming. Just like that, Wooming, one of the only 7 god slayers in the world and one of the 7 kings, ran away with a disobedient god. After Alice and Erica found Wooming, they criticized him more than once, but every time Wooming laughed it off. Of course, this was a story for another day. Chapter 180. After Athena pulled Wu Ming out of Alice's house, Wu Ming and Athena took a small sailboat that Athena got from nowhere. The sailboat was more like a large surfboard with a sail, so it was euphemistically called a sailboat. After getting on the sailboat, the wind began to blow, and the sailboat began to move quickly in a certain direction. "This is quite interesting. Is this your ability?" Wu Ming asked with interest. "This is the guidance of the wind." Athena stood at the front of the sailboat, looking at the endless sea. Wu Ming rolled his eyes, then continued. "Where are we going?" Athena answered without turning her head. "Naples." Naples was the largest city in southern Italy, the capital of Campania and the province of Naples. It was most famous for Mount Vesuvius, known as the most dangerous active volcano in Europe. Thinking about the information about Naples in his mind, Silent Wonder suddenly remembered something. "I remember, it seems that Gorgon stone was excavated in Naples." Wu Ming didn't believe that it had nothing to do with Gorgon stone. Wu Ming looked at Athena and motioned her to explain. Athena turned her head and smiled wickedly. "As expected of the warrior I like, even your brain is so smart. You and I are the same generation, but I always feel that you're talking to the younger generation." Wu Ming shook his head. Athena ignored Wu Ming's complaint and continued. "Naples has draconic snake's aura, and steel will definitely appear there." "Steel?" Wu Ming was a little confused. Although Erica once provided Wu Ming with information about steel, it was still too little, so Wu Ming didn't know much about Steel God. Seeing Wu Ming's doubts about his natural enemy, Athena looked at Wu Ming with disappointment. "Although I don't know why you forgot about your natural enemy, let me teach you a lesson." Athena then told Wu Ming about Steel God. Steel God was a metaphor for the smelting process of steel and a legend that he himself was made of steel, as well as the god of disobedience who killed Draconic Snake. Generally speaking, as long as it was a hero god, they would have Steel God's characteristics. But it wasn't absolute. Generally speaking, the god of steel referred to the hero god, but most of the hero gods and non-hero gods with steel characteristics usually got their steel characteristics from the deeds of slaying Dragon Serpent. In that case, their steel characteristics would be particularly rare. Steel God's characteristics should have steel's smelting process and the legend that he himself was made of steel. The god of disobedience. Steel God and the God Slayer were natural enemies. As long as they fought each other, Steel God would become stronger, and the God Slayer would become fanatical and warlike. In addition, Steel God and the God of disobedience related to Draconic Snake were also natural enemies. In other words, Athena, who pursued Gorgon Stone, the Snake, and Wu Ming, the Knight of the Round Table, Vilo-Therancid, were natural enemies of Steel God. Wu Ming raised his eyebrows. "Do you mean you want me to deal with Steel God? Or do you want to fight with me?" However, for those God of disobedience, there was no such thing as a gang fight. "How is that possible? Although I'm not that weak without Snake, I'm still a little weak, so I'm not your opponent." Athena smiled slyly. Wu Ming was now convinced that Athena must have found out about his identity as the god of disobedience, and that's why she came to him. Previously, Wu Ming didn't reject Wu Ming. Now, Wu Ming understood that this was like a cousin, younger cousin, and a cousin, older cousin. Even if they were cousins, they were still related. Of course, Wu Ming knew what Athena meant. With Wu Ming, the god of disobedience with a high draconic attribute, the god of steel in the present world would definitely come looking for him. Wu Ming believed that the god of disobedience with steel attribute would not let him go, no matter what, Athena who lacked a snake, or the draconic serpent and the god slayer, would not let him go. But that's not bad. I haven't seen the god of steel yet. This is a good opportunity to see him. Wu Ming's mouth raised again. Athena looked at his smile and smiled. Then Athena flew to Wu Ming and gently stroked Wu Ming's face. "This concubine likes your unruly smile. It's incomparably delightful." Seeing the fighting spirit in Athena's eyes again, Wu Ming quickly changed the topic. "Ahem, is there any god relic in Naples?" After all, in order to make the god of steel appear, he needed Draconic Snake, but Athena only said that there was a Draconic Snake's aura, which meant that there was no god of disobedience with draconic snake attribute, so it was very likely that there was a god relic related to draconic snake. Yes, there's a god relic of Mother Earth there. Athena said, Mother Earth? Wuming remembered the information provided by Erica, which contained information about Mother Earth. Mother Earth, also known as Mother Earth or Mother Earth, referred to the goddess who specialized in fertility and symbolized the grace of the earth. However, not all goddesses in this category could be called Mother Earth. In myths around the world, the gods who could be classified as Mother Earth were powerful masters of maternal power in their mythological system. But in later myths, a large number of Mother Earth were belittled as the wife, sister, or daughter of a male god, or died directly. Take Huaxia as an example. Goddess Hutu, one of the 12 witch ancestors, was a very pure Mother Earth. Hutu incarnated into the 6 paths of reincarnation and died directly. And the belittled Mother Earth, if Wuming remembered correctly, Athena seemed to be one too. This also explained why Athena in the present world was incomplete, because after she was belittled, the divinity of Mother Earth was split into Gorgon stone. With that thought in mind, Wuming looked at Athena. What are you trying to say with that look in your eyes? Athena said calmly, Nothing. I just thought of something interesting. Wuming smiled casually and stopped thinking about it. After all, Athena could be said to be a friend now, not an enemy, so there was no need to consider fighting her. Athena seemed to have seen through Wuming's thoughts, so she said, Don't be happy too early. I'll fight you sooner or later. This is a war you started, so you have to be responsible for extinguishing it. Wuming, who had just relaxed, froze again. We're here. Wuming snapped back to his senses and looked in Athena's direction. What entered his sight was a huge port. Chapter 181. The bustling port during the day has become quiet at this moment. After landing on the shore, Wuming and Athena headed in a certain direction, which seemed to be a mining mountain. You can feel it, right? Athena asked. Wuming nodded and looked in the direction where the two were walking. This magical power is like Gorgon stone that has been completely unsealed. However, at that moment, Wuming also felt another magical power, which he was very familiar with. This is, if I remember correctly, this is Salvatore's power. Wuming said so and continued to look in the direction he was looking at before. That's right. There's another enemy of mine here, Athena said as she looked at a certain spot on the mountain. Wuming felt the power that Salvatore used during the battle, the silver arm that could split everything. The Sage Council of Greenwich called it Silver Arm the Ripper. Wuming had a bad feeling. If that idiot is here, it seems that this battle with the God of Steel is inevitable. As soon as Wuming finished speaking, a huge magical power rose from somewhere in the mountain, and a huge beam of light illuminated the entire port of Naples. Then, in the eyes of Wuming and Athena, the huge magical power began to condense and finally formed a huge Western dragon. The draconic snake has appeared, and the God of Steel should be nearby, Athena explained to Wuming. I see. Let's hurry up and deal with the God of Steel. Although I'm not human and don't need to sleep, I can't change my habit. Wuming yawned and then ran in the direction of the dragon. Athena, on the other hand, watched as Wuming left. She spread her owl wings and followed after him. At the top of Mount Vesuvius, the crater, a young Caucasian man with blonde hair stood at the crater of the volcano. He was dressed in an elegant white suit and looked down at the giant dragon flying above Naples. So that's how it is. The God of Steel appeared because of the serpent. After saying that, the man jumped. Nay, a white-winged Pegasus flew over from nowhere, and the man jumped on the Pegasus' back. Nay, the Pegasus flew toward the dragon with the man on its back. At that moment, the blond man and Wuming rushed toward the dragon's serpent at the same time. The dark green dragon flapped its wings and soared into the sky. Its wild eyes scanned the surroundings as if it was curious about the surrounding buildings. At that moment, the blond man came to the dragon's head. Evil dragon, today I, the hero, Perseus, will kill you. Like a hero slaughtering an evil dragon in a fairy tale, Perseus condensed a long blade in his hand and charged towards the giant dragon. Roar! The dragon was unwilling to be outdone. After roaring, it rushed toward Perseus. However, with the god of steel's attribute, the dragon was bound to be at a disadvantage against Perseus. Not to mention, the dragon was just a divine beast, while Perseus was a god of steel. Roar! A huge saber light flashed, and the dragon roared in pain. A bone-revealing wound appeared on its body, and blood flowed out. The dragon roared and fell to the ground, making a loud noise. Roar! Roar! The giant dragon let out a sorrowful cry, as if it had foreseen its end. Its cry was very tragic. However, the god of steel would not let it go. Today, the hero, Perseus, will kill the dragon again. Perseus said very confidently, then raised the long sword in his hand and slashed toward the dragon. Please wait a minute. A girl's voice came. Perseus stopped what he was doing and turned around when he heard the melodious voice of a young girl. What a beautiful girl. This is very consistent with the story of killing the dragon to save the princess. Perseus smiled happily. If Wooming was here, he would definitely recognize the girl in front of Perseus. She was Liliana Kranikar, who left alone after Marquis Warban was defeated. Great Lord, please show mercy. This dragon is condensed from the magical power of the Neapolitan spiritual vein. If you kill it, it will cause irreversible damage to the Neapolitan spiritual vein. Liliana knelt on one knee and looked at Perseus with a serious face, hoping that the god could show mercy. However, since Perseus had appeared as the god of disobedience, he would not listen to the opinions of humans. How can that be? Young man, this is a dragon, an existence that must be killed. I have made up my mind. Back down, girl. With that said, Perseus raised his long saber again and slashed at the dragon. Swoosh! The sword flashed, and one of the dragon's wings was cut off by Perseus. Roar! The dragon howled weakly. Please wait a minute. Liliana rushed to Perseus. I said, back down, girl. With Perseus's words, there was also a magical impact that repelled Liliana. Liliana was sent flying, but she did not feel the coldness of the ground. Then, Liliana opened her closed eyes. Yo, Miss Liliana. Wooming held Liliana and stood steadily on the ground. I'm sorry, King. Liliana reacted as if she had just reacted. She quickly broke free from the arms of Wooming and others and knelt on one knee to salute Wooming. Perseus looked at Wooming with a smile. Oh, you're both my compatriot and my mortal enemy. How interesting. My compatriot refers to the god of disobedience and steel, and my old enemy refers to the god Slayer, who has the nature of draconic snake. Perseus flicked the bloodstains on his long saber and continued. You are obviously a mixture of draconic snake and steel, but you can clearly distinguish the aura of draconic snake and steel. Both the god of disobedience and the god Slayer, both draconic snake and steel, it seems that I have met a big shot, haha. Perseus was excited. Wooming raised his eyebrows and thought, do I still have steel's aura? Why didn't Athena tell me? Wooming, who was not a native of this world, could not accurately distinguish the aura of draconic snake and steel, not to mention that the identity of draconic snake and steel was imposed on Wooming by this world. However, thinking about it carefully, Villotharan Seed did indeed have the dual attributes of steel and draconic snake. First, the mysterious identity of a legendary dragon. It could be said that Villotharan Seed was the god of draconic snake. Second, Villotharan Seed did have the legend of forging Exsilver, and Villo also had a close relationship with King Arthur, who was also steel and draconic snake, so it was not wrong for him to have steel's attribute. But even if it was not draconic snake and steel, would Wooming not care about it? The answer was no. Who cares? With that thought in mind, Wooming said to Perseus, I'm really sorry. Due to the willful request of a certain goddess, I have no choice but to come and fight you. With that said, Wooming pointed at the gigantic dragon behind him who looked like a trembling puppy. A certain goddess? Liliana was a little surprised. At this time, Athena flew in front of the dragon. "You are really rude, god of steel." Athena touched the dragon, and then the dragon turned into pure energy and was injected into Athena's body. So that's how it is. The goddess of earth and draconic snake's hero. What a good combination. Perseus smiled elegantly. "So, I have to deal with two opponents this time." Although he was surrounded, Perseus still said arrogantly, "How can that be? Of course, it's my hero who will fight you. I'm looking forward to this duel." Athena smiled slyly. Wuming shrugged his shoulders casually, then looked at Perseus. "As you can see, there's no time to lose. Hurry up, I still want to sleep." Seeing Wuming yawning and looking down on him, Perseus was a little annoyed. "It seems that I have been underestimated. I have to teach you a lesson, my old enemy." Chapter 182. Perseus charged forward with his sword and swung it at Wuming. Wuming, on the other hand, did not even look at it. He extended his hand and grabbed it directly. What? No matter what, Perseus was a god, and the weapon he used was a god relic. No matter how strong his body was as a god slayer and a god of disobedience, it was illogical for him to grab a white sword with one hand. All right, it was magical. As expected, my body is strong enough to resist a god relic now that I've become a god slayer. Wuming smiled as he grabbed Perseus' sword as if he had expected it, as expected of a top dragon snake. It's not unreasonable for him to have such a powerful armor. Perseus immediately let go of the long sword in his hand and leaped backward. At that moment, Athena, who was standing behind Perseus, had already left. Perseus materialized a bow and immediately pulled the bow fully. A seemingly ordinary arrow was shot at Wuming. Along the way, a powerful force exploded from the arrow. Like a dragon, it charged at Wuming. Wuming tossed the long sword in his hand away. The long sword turned into mana and disappeared. Wuming said to Liliana directly, "This isn't something you can get involved in. Step back a little." Although Liliana was a little hesitant, she still listened to Wuming. "Yes, your majesty. Please control your power a little and try your best to reduce the damage to Naples." Subsequently, Liliana realized that her words were a little rude to the god slayer who was a king. She immediately knelt on one knee. Please forgive me." Liliana said something that crossed the line. "Please punish me, your majesty," Liliana said with a blush on her face. Looking at the adorable Liliana, Wuming could not bring himself to blame her. Subsequently, Wuming immediately took out the X silver from the golden ripple. Bang! Wuming casually waved his hand, and the huge mana arrow was neutralized by X silver's mana impact. "All right, I'll pardon you. Back off a little and protect yourself first." After saying that, Wuming ignored Liliana, and Wuming extended his left hand to Perseus. "Please, Enkidu." Wuming once again woke up Enkidu, who had fallen asleep because Wuming wanted to rest. "Yes, leave it to me, Lord Wuming." A golden chain appeared on Wuming's left hand. The golden chain slid at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then, it wrapped around Perseus before he could react. "Oomph. You want to trap my hero Perseus with mere chains?" Perseus tried to struggle, but he couldn't break free. Not to mention breaking free, these strange golden chains were getting tighter and tighter. "What is this? Is this a weapon against gods?" Perseus couldn't help but ask. Wuming was still in a leisurely mood. He slowly walked up to Perseus and said, "This is Enkidu, the heaven lock that is specially used to deal with gods. I think even you should have heard of it." Looking at Wuming, who was getting closer and closer, Perseus broke out in a cold sweat. "Is it a weapon against gods in the Sumer divine system? I don't think this is the authority you obtained from killing gods. I really didn't expect that you, a Celtic god, actually have a treasure from the Sumer divine system. I'm really getting more and more curious about you." Wuming stopped when he was still some distance away from Perseus. "So, are you ready to return to mythology, Perseus? I'm the strongest, and I hold all victory in my hands. No matter if it's a human or a demon, I'm the one who defeats all enemies' hostility." I will defeat any enemy that blocks my way. Giants with unparalleled divine power, please give me your aid. As the words were spoken, the long pointer on the stone plate in Wuming's inner world suddenly turned and pointed to the 2 o'clock direction. It was a stone plate that depicted a giant that towered into the sky. Then a huge golden giant phantom appeared and enveloped Wuming. Thou hast violated the contract and brought evil to the world. Lord's Day, sinners will be punished. Shatter their backs, dig out their bones, hair, and brains, and trample on their blood and mud. If I'm the one who can't get close to the darkness, I'll follow the Lord's words and destroy thee. The short pointer on the stone plate pointed to the 5 o'clock direction. The small stone plate lit up, and the small stone plate that lit up was engraved with a portrait that looked like a black hole that absorbed everything. In an instant, the giant changed color from the original gold to red, and its entire body was surrounded by the aura of annihilation. The land around Wuming began to disappear bit by bit. As if sensing something, the light behind Perseus shone brightly and illuminated Wuming. However, this was of no use. The giant moved according to Wuming's thoughts. It raised its hand and caught the mythical beast that was flying in the sky, Pegasus, and then crushed it. Nay, Pegasus let out a mournful cry and died in the giant's red palm. Even the mana that had disappeared was devoured by the red palm and wiped out completely. Why? That's obviously the power of Welslana. How can it not be sealed? Perseus was shocked. Of course, Wuming would not tell him that it was a noble relic that was sublimated from the combination of Welslana and Mecker's powers. 12 powers, God's killer level, EX type, human noble relic distance, 1 maximum catch. There were 12 incarnations of dragon species, giant, warrior, storm, annihilation, flood, vitality, dependence, thunder god, phoenix, sun, and magician. Each incarnation was comparable to a noble relic. It was the upgraded version of the power that came from killing the god's clones. It had become Wuming's own thing. I don't have the idea of a villain telling the protagonist about his ability. You can return to the myth in confusion. With that, the giant's shadow held Perseus. Damn it! Ah! Damn God Slayer! Damn snake! Perseus roared and struggled frantically, but he could not break free from the lock of heaven. Enkidu, the one with the power of annihilation. Kill him with one blow, shatter, and annihilate him. Chanting again, the red giant burst out a dark red light, and the hand that was holding Perseus clenched hard. At this point, the famous hero in Greek mythology, Perseus, returned to the myth. Wuming removed the incarnations of giant and annihilation and took back the lock of heaven. Little N, are you okay? Wuming asked with concern. It's okay, Master Wuming, because the attack just now was your noble relic. Although it had the power to threaten me, I was not hurt. The golden chain wrapped around Wuming's arm, and there was a cool female voice. I think so too. After all, I now have full control of the power of authority. Suddenly, Wuming found a problem. Why didn't the power increase? It was not that Wuming needed Perseus' power, but the timing was too strange. The God Slayer would definitely gain the power after killing the god of disobedience. This was the law of Pandora's great curse. Wuming instantly emptied his mind and felt the changes in the surrounding magic. Found it. Chapter 183. I'm the strongest and the one who holds all victory in my hands. No matter if it is a human or a demon, I will defeat any enemy that stands in my way. Giant with supreme divine power, give me your aid. Fear the one with wings. Evil people and powerful people are all afraid of me with wings. My wings will bring you a curse. Evil people will not be able to hit me. In an instant, Wuming chanted 2 words in a row. The long and short needles on the stone plate in his heart pointed at 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock respectively. The towering giant and the illusory phoenix lit up. At a speed that was difficult to be seen by the naked eye, Wuming rushed to a small forest not far away. Wuming raised an arm, and the shadow of a giant's hand appeared. Then, the giant's hand slammed into the house. Boom! The hurricane surged in all directions and the earth groaned. The hurricane blew over some of the surrounding buildings. Even Liliana, who was unprepared, was blown away. With the house as the center, the ground cracked like a spiderweb. However, Wuming did not feel like he had hit the target. A black shadow escaped from the house before Wuming hit it. Master Villo, please stop. The black shadow let out a voice that Wuming missed. What's this voice? Wuming stopped and dismissed the two avatars. Looking at the black shadow that he could not see clearly, Wuming was a little excited. It can't be wrong. It's you, Guinevere. The black shadow walked in front of Wuming and revealed her true form. It was a beautiful white girl about 12 or 13 years old. Her golden curly hair outlined an elegant curve and set off an extremely beautiful face. She was like a child's version of the Guinevere that Wuming knew in the Moon world. Master Villo, I missed you so much. With a choked voice, Guinevere threw herself into Wuming's arms. Wuming squatted down, as if he was a father hugging his daughter. I don't know what kind of relationship Guinevere and I have in this world, but King Arthur is not a woman. With that in mind, Wuming patted Guinevere's back. Although it wasn't Guinevere from the same world, the sense of familiarity he felt was the same. Guinevere, why are you here? Wuming asked with concern. Guinevere wiped his tears, raised his head, and looked at Wuming. Master Villo, I came to find the last king. Guinevere then spoke to his shadow. Uncle, please come out. In a split second, Guinevere's shadow rippled as a fully armored knight appeared from Guinevere's shadow. Master Villo, it's my honor to see you again. The neutral voice conveyed from the heavy armor made Wuming wonder if Lancelot in this world was a man. Seeing that Wuming didn't speak, Guinevere thought that Wuming was blaming Lancelot and quickly explained. Master Villo, Uncle appeared as my patron saint, God's Shadow. Because of his berserk skill, he lost the memory of the people he knew, and I lost my memory because I reincarnated for too long. I didn't mean to neglect you. If I didn't come in close contact with you, I wouldn't have recognized you. Seeing that Guinevere seemed to have misunderstood something, Wuming smiled and shook his head. I don't mean to blame you. I'm just thinking about what you said about the last king. Master Villo, don't you know the last king? I thought you were the last king. Guinevere said with some disappointment. Then Lancelot spoke. Lord Varen, Wu Hou's daughter came here for the strongest steel god. We want to use the dragon snake to lure the last king out. After a brief description, Wuming understood Guinevere and Lancelot's plan. Both of them had their own mission to find the last king and liberate the strongest steel. However, neither of them knew the identity of the last king, so they could only keep looking for him. The easiest way to find steel was to liberate Dragon Snake. Therefore, Hera's stone pillar under the ruins of Naples became a good tool to use. However, Salvatore was an unexpected guest. Salvatore was knocked out in a fight with Wuming, so Salvatore, who felt that he had not fought enough, found this relic in Italy. It was the Hera's stone pillar. After cutting Hera's stone pillar in half with silver arm to rip, the huge magical impact sent Salvatore flying. The demonic dragon, condensed from a magical power of the spiritual vein of Naples, attracted Perseus. Liliana wanted to stop Salvatore's behavior because she was with Salvatore before, but because she didn't stop it in time, Hera's stone pillar was cut off. After Salvatore was sent flying by the magical impact, Liliana wanted to stop the dragon from wreaking havoc, so she followed the dragon. As a result, she saw that Perseus was going to attack the dragon, and then it was Wuming's turn. With the idea of seeing whether Perseus was the last king, Guinevere and Lancelot hid and waited for the battle between Wuming and Perseus. The result was no doubt that Wuming won. I've already said that Lord Varen's status is not something a mere Mitra can compare to, Lancelot said. Hearing this, Wuming thought of the light that Perseus released at the end, which was like a sun, and why Perseus said that it couldn't be sealed. When Wuming first met Perseus, he quietly asked Callis to find out all the information about Perseus. He had no doubt that Perseus was Wuming of Mitra, and because Perseus was Mitra, he had a sealing effect on Welleslana's authority. However, what Perseus did not expect was that the 10 avatars that had become Wuming's noble phantasm could no longer be affected by Mitra. After all, the 12 avatars of Wuming had exclusive authority. I'm really happy to be able to see Sir Villo. Guinevere smiled sweetly. This reminded Wuming of Guinevere in the Moon world. Both of them loved to smile. Regardless of whether they were related or not, Wuming still liked Guinevere, who loved to smile. Although it's a little surprising that Sir Villo became a god slayer, did Sir Villo also use some secret technique to turn people around? Guinevere said softly. We're very sorry, Sir Villo. Since you've become a god slayer, you definitely won't be the last king. Lancelot continued Guinevere's words. I wish you success, Sir Villo. Lancelot summoned a white horse and left with Guinevere. Wuming did not stop them. Instead, he was deep in thought. Chapter 184. Wuming stood on the spot and pondered. It was only when Liliana, who was blown away, came back to Wuming that Wuming reacted. My king, are you all right? Liliana asked worriedly. Although Liliana was puzzled when Wuming attacked the forest, she saw a figure dodging Wuming's attack the moment she was blown away. Liliana was worried that Wuming was affected by an unknown mysterious person. That was why she was so worried. After all, he was the king. I'm fine. After Wuming came back to his senses, he remembered something. He had not yet asked what Perseus's authority was. He shook his head regretfully. Then, let's restore this place to its original state, Wuming said as he reached his hand into the golden ripple. Then, Wuming took out the item that was used to restore the land and buildings. As mana was transported into the item, the damaged land and buildings began to recover. Liliana looked at the scene in surprise and made a strange sound. After restoring all the damaged land to its original state, Wuming looked at Liliana. Let's go. Bring me to the Bronze Cross and Black Cross stronghold to sleep. Damn it, I'm exhausted after fighting in the middle of the night. Wuming stretched and yawned. Liliana seemed to have thought of something, and her young face blushed. As if she had made a big decision, Liliana blushed and looked at Wuming solemnly. I understand. If I can appease the king's anger, then I can. At the end of her sentence, Liliana's voice was completely inaudible. Wuming looked strangely at Liliana, who had turned into a mosquito coil with smoke coming out her head. Then he knocked on her head. All right, bring me to the Bronze Cross stronghold first. Yes. Wuming left with Liliana. After a while, Guinevere and Lancelot returned. Uncle, why are you avoiding Sir Villo? Also, I haven't told Lord Wuming about the arrowhead disc absorbing Perseus's authority. Guinevere held a stone disc in his hand. There was a special sword-shaped text on it. Guinevere looked at Lancelot, who was hugging him, in confusion. That's right, Wuming didn't obtain authority after killing Perseus because of the stone disc in Guinevere's hand. That was the treasure of the last king. It had the ability to absorb and use the power of steel. Moreover, Lancelot was indeed avoiding Wuming. This was something that Wuming could see. My beloved daughter, since Mr. Villo has become a god slayer, he is our enemy. Lancelot's helmeted eyes glowed red. Enemy? Guinevere found it hard to accept. Guinevere, who had lost most of his memories, felt incomparably blessed when he was able to recall Vero, Cyrus, Eddie. The gods of this world had multiple identities. Although the Guinevere of this world wasn't completely Guinevere, he still had memories of his time as Guinevere. Guinevere's eyes were a little wet when he remembered what he had experienced with his personal knight, Villo Theranced. However, it was Guinevere's lifelong wish to find and unseal the last king. I understand, uncle. Although Guinevere seemed to be in pain, he still decided to treat Wuming as an enemy. Lancelot nodded. After a while, Guinevere sighed and looked at Lancelot behind him. Guinevere smiled and said, Actually, uncle, you are the one suffering the most. Lancelot's body trembled and his hands clenched into fists. People always thought that the person Lancelot respected and admired the most was King Arthur. But in reality, the person Lancelot respected and admired the most was King Arthur's first knight, Villothrance. Guinevere looked at Lancelot with a pained expression and continued. Because of the relationship between Villo and Guinevere, after Villo was sealed as the demonic dragon, Lancelot volunteered to be Guinevere's personal knight and protect the person he respected the most. Just like that, Lancelot became Guinevere's guardian and appeared on the ground as the shadow of God, until today when he met that lord again. Lancelot was silent for a moment before he spoke. I'm protecting you because you're the prerequisite to finding the last king. There is no other reason. I'm a little weak now, so I'll return to your shadow. Then Lancelot and the white horse turned into a black shadow and merged into Guinevere's shadow. You're not frank at all, uncle. Guinevere smiled. Next, it's Monarch Ape in the easternmost land. Dark clouds covered the moon and darkness shrouded the land. A moment later, the wind blew away the dark clouds and Guinevere was long gone. The next day, although Wu Ming slept very late last night, he still woke up early. When he walked out of the room that Liliana prepared for Wu Ming at the Bronze Black Cross last night, he heard a pleasant female voice. Lord Wu Ming, you're up. Do you need me to prepare breakfast? A girl in a maid uniform asked Wu Ming. Hearing that, Wu Ming looked at the girl. Her long green hair flowed naturally behind her back, and her face was filled with a sly smile, from Wu Ming's perspective. I remember your name is Karen, right? Wu Ming asked. Yes, it's my honor to be remembered by Lord Wu Ming. The girl named Karen bowed and replied with a smile. Then, I'll have to trouble you to prepare breakfast for me, Wu Ming said. Your breakfast has been prepared by Miss Liliana. Please come with me. With that, Karen pointed forward with both hands and motioned for Wu Ming to go first. Wu Ming shrugged and walked forward. Karen followed behind Wu Ming with a smile on her face. Glancing at the maid, Wu Ming could not help but think of last night. After Liliana brought Wu Ming to the Bronze Black Cross's stronghold in Naples, Liliana personally prepared a room for Wu Ming. Karen was also there at that time, and Liliana introduced her to Wu Ming. Then, after Wu Ming entered the room, Liliana walked in pajamas after a short while. Looking at the blushing Liliana, Wu Ming shook his head and asked for the reason. In the end, because of Liliana's fantasy and the instigation and bewitching words of the maid named Karen, Liliana thought that she had to serve Wu Ming in bed to appease his anger. After being lectured by Wu Ming for a while, Liliana ran out of the room with a blush. You won't even let go of your master. You really are a little devil, Wu Ming said casually. Thank you for the compliment, Lord Wu Ming. Karen smiled and thanked Wu Ming. Soon, Wu Ming arrived at the dining room. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.